Chapter 884. Under the scorching sun. Even Wu Yin couldn't help but sweat beads on his forehead and trickle down his cheeks. Even his throat started to dry up and his wine-red eyes started to ache. The current temperature is at least 40 degrees Celsius. It's not a normal heat. If a normal person was exposed to the sun for more than half an hour, they would have already gotten heat stroke. Wu Yin didn't get heat stroke, but he still felt unbearably hot. After looking at the map under the sun for so long, it's normal for his eyes to feel sore. Compared to Wu Yin, Coterie didn't sweat at all. As a flame manipulator, this temperature is nothing to Coterie. However, she still noticed Wu Yan's sweaty appearance. She blinked her eyes, and her heart ached for him. Coterie took out a handkerchief from her pocket. She hesitated for a bit, but she couldn't muster the courage to wipe his sweat. She shoved the handkerchief into his hand and turned her head away in a huff. "Hurry up and wipe it off. Look at your head full of sweat. Don't make it stinky." Wu Yin was stunned. He chuckled when he realized what was going on. "Well, I'll gratefully accept the kindness of my cute little sister, although I'm quite dissatisfied with the fact that there's no need to wipe my sweat." Who would wipe your sweat?" Coterie blushed and pretended to be angry. "Who do you think put us in this situation? You want me to wipe your sweat? Don't even think about it." "I can't help it." Wu Yin wiped the sweat off his forehead, and he complained. "We don't know anyone here, and we don't have a destination in mind. It's inevitable for us to wander around here." Coterie furrowed her beautiful brows. "Don't you know the situation of every dungeon? Don't you know what to do first?" "Ha, ha." Wu Yin laughed dryly. "Although I am very familiar with some instance dungeon worlds, it is impossible for me to be so familiar with every instance dungeon world. Unfortunately for me, this is the case. Unfortunately, this dungeon is the type that I'm not familiar with." That's right. Wu Yin wasn't as familiar with the bloodthirsty rampage world as he was with the whirlwind butler, forbidden tome catalog, date battle, and sword god's domain. When he first transmigrated to the Spalier world, the bloodthirsty rampage world was just released. Although he was an otaku, he wouldn't let go of any good anime. However, he wasn't as familiar with it as he was with the old world. That's why Wu Yin only had a rough understanding of the bloodthirsty rampage world. Otherwise, he wouldn't have asked the system for some basic information. As for the plot, he didn't completely forget it, but the parts he remembered were intermittent. There's not much left. This is the main reason Wu Yin became a headless chicken. Anyway, Coterie unwrapped a pearl and put it in her mouth. "It's not a good idea to stay here. Let's find a place to stay." "That's what I thought from the start." Wu Yin glanced at Coterie and waved the map in his hand. "So you've been looking for a place to stay? What? Is it that hard to find a place to stay?" "It's not hard to find a place to stay, but it's not easy to find a place where we can stay without having to show identification. Of course, it's not that hard to find a place like a couple's hotel." "Love, couple's hotel? Don't shout so loudly in a place like this. Do you want me to be looked down upon as a pervert?" "You're a pervert. You're a big pervert. Couple's hotel. You can even think of that. I'm just mentioning it. I'm not really going to stay there." "Oof. Do you think I don't know what you're thinking? Let me tell you, if you find a place like a couple's hotel, you're dead meat." "I told you. Don't be so loud." Just like that, the two siblings made a big fuss in the middle of the street, attracting the attention of many onlookers. Fortunately, because of the weather, not many people wanted to stay and watch the show. They all just took a glance and left with a belly full of curiosity. Of course, there were some who weren't afraid of the heat. Those who were bored didn't mind being a fly. For example, "Yo, the two of you are fighting?" A teasing whistle came from beside Wu Yin and Coterie. Then, three guys in their 20s with dyed hair and adorned with eye-catching accessories came out from a nearby alley. They approached Wu Yin and Coterie with flirtatious looks on their faces. Wu Yin and Coterie froze, but soon relaxed. They watched as the three gangsters surrounded them. Hey, what a cute little girl." A yellow-haired delinquent giggled and glanced at Coterie. His smile widened when he saw how cute she was. "What's wrong? Did you fight with your boyfriend? Do you want us to comfort you?" Yeah. Another brown-haired delinquent also came up and said with a smirk, "Unlike your useless boyfriend, we are very gentle. What do you think?" The green-haired gangster pointed at his nose impatiently. Come play with us. Coterie looked coldly at the three delinquents who were getting closer and closer. She chewed the pearl in her mouth and curled her lips as if she was not tired of it. Can you guys get out of my sight? Hey, don't be so cold. We're easy to get along with. The three delinquents giggled as they tried to squeeze in front of Coterie. They even tried to push Wu Yin out of the way. However, Wu Yin crossed his arms in front of his chest. He didn't say anything. He didn't move either. He just let them squeeze in. Thus, the three delinquents tried to squeeze their way in, but the scene they imagined didn't happen. Instead, they felt like they were being squeezed into a wall. They're taller than Wu Yin, but they couldn't push him aside. Oh, you're quite strong. The blonde gangster looked at Wu Yin in surprise and sneered. Hey kid, can you move aside? Didn't your mom teach you that it's wrong to block other people's way? Wu Yin raised an eyebrow, and he smiled in amusement. Oh, did your mom teach you to hit on other people's girlfriends? Hey, kid, you seem to be very arrogant. The brown-haired delinquent laughed sinisterly and clenched his fist. Suddenly, the sound of his knuckles cracking could be heard. I'm just borrowing your girlfriend for fun. You don't mind, right? Wu Yin narrowed his eyes and sneered. You mean if I want to borrow your girlfriend, you won't mind? Don't talk so much to this brat. This brat looks very arrogant. The green-haired gangster pushed his companions aside and walked in front of Wu Yin. He slowly raised his hand. Kid, do you know what this is? Wu Yin subconsciously followed the delinquent's words and looked at his hand. His eyes narrowed. He saw that the delinquent was wearing a metal bracelet on his wrist. No, it's not just the gangster. The other two gangsters also have the same bracelet on their wrists. This kind of bracelet looks very common. You can buy it even on the streets. However, Wu Yin didn't think that the guy was trying to show him a cheap product. Wu Yin didn't recognize the bracelet, but he knew that there was a special bracelet on Itagami Island. Demon Entry Permit. Only the demons on Itagami Island were allowed to wear the Demon Entry Certificate to show their identity. In other words, these three gangsters aren't humans. They are demons. Chapter 885. The three delinquents in front of him are all demons. Looking at the three special bracelets that represent their identities, he frowned and sighed. In this world, even demons can be delinquents? Should I say as expected of the demon special district? Or should I say it's a far cry from my impression? However, this also proves that the demons have fully integrated into the lives of ordinary people in Itagami Island. It's time for me to change my perspective on the demons. Many thoughts flashed through his mind in an instant, causing him to look like he's frozen in place. In the eyes of the three delinquents, his demeanor is no different from being frightened. Instantly, the three delinquents giggled in delight and delight. How about it? Do you understand? The blonde delinquent had an annoying smile. He put his arm around Wu Yin's shoulder and waved the demon land permit in his hand. This is the demon race's landing certificate. We are all demons. Do you understand what this means? This means, without waiting for Wu Yan's reply, the other brown-haired delinquent puffed out his chest and shouted, In our eyes, you are a mere human. You're just an ordinary human being. You're just a piece of cake. Do you understand? The green-haired delinquent seemed impatient. He waved his hand at Wu Yin like he was swatting a fly. If you understand, then get out of my way. Wu Yin looked at the three demons. He didn't interrupt them, but his gaze became colder and colder. He was no longer as interested as before. You. Wu Yin looked up. His wine-red eyes were emotionless. Are you done? The three delinquent demons were stunned by Wu Yan's sudden change in tone. Their eyes were filled with confusion. In the past, they had done things like today many times, relying on their status as demons to back them up. Bullying the weak. They do it almost every day. But when they do, they will. Then, the demonic entry permit in their hands would sound the alarm when they used their demonic energy, alerting the guards of Itagami Island. When that time comes, they won't be able to get away with it. But as demons, they don't need to use demonic energy to bully ordinary people. It was also because of this that every time they flashed their devil landing certificate and revealed their identities as devils, the ordinary people they bullied would obediently listen to them. No matter how unwilling they were, They didn't dare to act on the spot and let them do as they pleased. Over time, these three devils became more and more unscrupulous. But this time, it's different from the past. Not only was the man before them not fearful of their devilish identities, his attitude had also changed after they had revealed their identities. It was as if before he revealed his identity, the other party was like a lion watching an antelope waving its sharp horns in front of him. Rather than saying that he was playing with them, it was better to say that he was watching their performance with a playful mood. After revealing their identities, the lion suddenly realized that the antelope's horn turned into a spear that can pierce its skin. It went from ignoring them to looking at them directly. But that doesn't mean it's a good thing. After all, when a lion sees an ant crawling in front of it, it won't waste its strength to squash the ant. But when an antelope walks in front of it, even if the antelope can't hurt it, it will pounce and bite the antelope to death. Now, the three demons who evolved from ants to antelopes have a sense of crisis, like they're being stared at by a lion. But how is that possible? The other party doesn't have a demon land permit. He's not a demon. Is he an attack mage? Thinking of this, the three demon hoodlums couldn't help but tighten their bodies, but their words were still as arrogant as before. Hey, human, do you want to fight the three of us alone? In other words, they have the advantage in numbers and don't mind ganging up on them. Of course, the three youths didn't notice that the brat they were referring to had changed from human to brat. Wu Yin sensed the change in the three demons and sighed. He turned to Coterie. Coterie, how do you think we should deal with them? Coterie twirled the jewel in her hand, seemingly amused by Wu Yan's question. She waved her hand nonchalantly. It doesn't matter, just deal with them quickly. I don't want to stand here like an idiot. Ugh. Wu Yan glanced at Coterie, who didn't seem to care. He smacked his lips. All right. As soon as he said that, thud, before the three delinquent demons could react, a soft stomp abruptly sounded and reverberated in the scorching air. Wu Yin turned into a wisp of light, and in a flash, he gradually enlarged in their eyes. In the blink of an eye, he arrived in front of them. Wah! The three delinquent youths' expressions changed drastically. Wu Yan's lips curled into a thought-provoking smile. Boom! He swung his leg like a whip and smashed it on the body of the green-haired delinquent demon. After a muffled sound, the green-haired delinquent demon screamed miserably as if he was hit by a truck. His body flew out like a kite with a broken string and heavily smashed into the wall of the street. His head tilted as he fainted. Seeing their comrade being sent flying like this, the remaining two delinquents couldn't help but cry out in shock. After recovering from their shock, they quickly retreated. You really are an attack mage, huh? Hearing the two delinquent demons' angry shouts, Wu Yin lightly swung his leg and tapped the ground with the tip of his foot. What? Are you afraid because your opponent is an attack mage? Wu Yin sneered, and he tilted his body to the side. Didn't you just say that I'm an ordinary human that you can easily take care of? Or are you saying that once the opponent is stronger than you, you're afraid of the slightest thing? As if trying to crush the nerves of the two demons, the words turned into arrows, piercing through their minds word by word. As expected of delinquents, bullying the weak and fearing the strong. Even demons. You bastard. The two already frightened demons seemed to have been hit by his words, their faces filled with anger. Then, a torrent of demonic energy violently surged from their bodies. Due to the difference in status between attack mages, the skill system they use is also different. Magicians use magic, overdaptors use superpowers. There are all kinds of skill systems. As long as their skill is strong enough to fight demons, they can become attack mages. However, regardless of the differences in the skill system of attack mages, it was a fact that they had the ability to resist the demon race. For the demon race, attack mages were also the natural enemies of attack mages. Attack mages, attack mages, attack mages. The meaning of this skill was as literal as its name. One could rely on their own strength to attack the demon race. Therefore, there were also attack mages who hunted demons for a living. Like assassins, there were attack mages The two demons already regarded Wu Yin as an attack mage, although they don't know if he's the type that hunts demons for a living. But the fact that their comrade was defeated in an instant made them fearful, so they used their demonic energy regardless of the cost. BZZ, BZZZ, BZ. Almost at the same time, the two demons' demon entry permit issued an alarm. Along with it, the surrounding streets also abruptly rang with the sound of sirens. Abnormal demonic energy detected. Surrounding citizens, please evacuate. Repeated. Abnormal demonic energy detected. Surrounding citizens, please evacuate. The sound of mechanical alarms reverberated in the surroundings. The entire street was in chaos all of a sudden. Chapter 886. Abnormal magical energy detected. Civilians, please evacuate immediately. I repeat, abnormal magical energy detected. Civilians, please evacuate immediately. On his wrist, the two demon race landing permits immediately sensed the magic power surging from the wearer. They vibrated like an alarm bell and issued an alarm in a burst of red flashes. On the street, an alarm that was louder than the demon landing certificate sounded from somewhere and spread all over the place in a short period of time. The next moment, defensive doors started to fall from the buildings on both sides of the street. After being stunned for a short while, people started to panic. Demons! Demons! Quick! Run! Amidst their screams, the pedestrians ran towards the ends of the streets in panic. They no longer had the appearance of being exhausted due to the hot weather. Every one of them was afraid that if they ran too slow, they would be involved in the battle. At that time, as ordinary humans, they might not even know when they would be implicated and die. Screams and screams resounded throughout the area. Along with the sound of the sirens, the crowd quickly ran away. Wu Yin and Coterie exchanged glances with each other when they heard the sirens echoing in the area. There was an alarm. Coterie looked displeased. This Itagami Island, does it forbid demons from fighting? I don't think it's that bad, right? Wu Yin looked around and smiled bitterly. But it seems like we've gotten ourselves into some unnecessary trouble. Even though Wu Yin has a basic understanding of the situation in Itagami Island, he didn't expect to see a battle in the city. The result is like a fire. But then again, it makes sense. There are normal humans living in Itagami City. When demons fight, their power isn't something normal humans can handle. That's why demons fighting in Itagami City isn't a big deal. But when demons use their magical energy, it's not a big deal. In fact, it was no different from a large-scale disaster. Under such circumstances, it's impossible for Itagami Island to not have any rules or regulations. It's just that Wu Yin and Yukari aren't familiar with the rules here. Now, the two demons had used their magic power, and the alarm had been sounded. The enforcers of Itagami Island should be coming soon. At that time, they would be in big trouble. It's not that Wu Yin and Coterie are afraid of Itagami City's law enforcers. It's just that they're trespassers without proper registration. Once they started patrolling, then the fact that the two of them did not register their identities would be exposed. They would definitely be investigated, but that was still a small matter. The key was, if that happened, how would they complete the first dungeon quest? This was the disadvantage of Wu Yin not being familiar with the original work. This time, thus it was displayed. It seems that if we really make a fuss, it will be very big. Coterie finally showed some seriousness in her red eyes. She told Wu Yin calmly, "Let's settle this quickly." Wu Yin nodded, no longer teasing. However, the two of them spoke as if no one else was around, infuriating the two demons. "Damn it, I'll show you what's good for you." The two delinquent devils shrieked as if they had gone mad. Their appearances immediately changed. Its pair of turbid eyes gradually turned blood red, and two sharp fangs protruded from its mouth, revealing itself above its lips. Even its ears seemed to have become a little sharper. These two youths from the Devil Clan were actually vampires. Vampires! Wu Yin was surprised by what he saw. "I'll kill you." The two vampires grinned maliciously. An air current that resembled blood and red steam erupted from their bodies. As they wriggled, their already impressive magic power increased by 2 to 3 times. The red steam swirled like a whirlpool. In the end, the two streams of red steam formed two horned beasts. They hovered in the air and roared. Hiss! A sharp screeching sound shook the entire area, and the atmosphere started to fluctuate violently. Under the effect of the tearing atmosphere and the surging magic power, the security doors on both sides of the street started to deform slightly, as if they were directly hit by some terrifying heavy weapon. Looking at the two horned beasts howling at him, Wu Yan's eyes flashed with an indescribable glint. Are these familiars? The trees on the street began to fall. The ground began to crack. Even the iron pillars of the street lamps groaned as if they would collapse at any moment. All of this was caused by the mana from the familiars. What a strong magic power, what a destructive power. Wu Yan gasped in shock. It's no wonder he reacted that way. From the feedback he received from system perception, Wu Yan knew that the two vampires before him were only at rank 7. They had just reached the lowest rank of rank 7. However, the vassal beasts they released were already at the peak of class 7, and were even showing signs of breaking through to class 8. What does this mean? It means that even if someone stronger than them were to take a hit from one of their familiars, they would suffer a fate worse than death. These familiars give their masters the ability to challenge those above their rank. In fact, they might even be able to challenge those above their rank. It was only now that Wu Yan realized he had underestimated the power of familiars. Possessing familiars didn't necessarily mean that one possessed great strength, but it definitely meant that one possessed terrifying destructive power. Even those stronger than you wouldn't be able to match up to you in terms of destructive power. If the familiars summoned by the two ordinary vampires were already this powerful, what kind of power would the familiars summoned by him, a true ancestor, have? Thinking up to this point, Wu Yan's heart started to heat up, and an excited smile appeared on his face. Looks like I'll have to hurry up and summon my familiars. The two vampires attacked at the same time. Wukong, go. Fight him to death. Ghostvine, hiss. The two familiars shrieked and charged at Wu Yan. They tore through the air with a sonic boom and terrifying mana fluctuations. Wu Yan wasn't surprised. Instead, he revealed a fanatical smile. Bring it on. Wu Yan clenched his fist at the sight of the two vampires charging at him. A surge of mana comparable to that of the two familiars ignited around his fist. Due to his agitation, his wine-red pupils had already turned into a noble gold color that would only appear when he was fully unleashed. Vampires' familiars are highly concentrated mana entities with a will of their own. In other words, the familiars themselves are mana itself. In order to defeat a familiar, the only way was to use magic that was more powerful than the familiar's own magic. It was because of this that Wu Yan gave up on other methods and focused solely on mana. Let me take a look. A vast power surged into the sky along with a magic power. Just how powerful are real familiars? Two vassal beasts charged at Wu Yan with overwhelming might. His fist wrapped in mana met the two familiars head-on. The next moment, boom, like a meteor crashing down, like a volcano erupting, like the roar of thunder, like a star exploding. An extremely dense light flashed from the center of the field, instantly illuminating every corner of the space. Then, a roar that was enough to shatter one's eardrums turned into a sound wave, attacking in all directions. Everywhere it passed, the air was swept up into a violent wind and evaporated, the ground shattered, and the streets almost collapsed. Although the arena wasn't reduced to rubble by the attacks of the two vampires who had just reached Tier 7, the terrifying destructive power of the familiars created a 10-meter-wide crater at the epicenter of the collision. Wu Yan stood in the middle of the crater. Wisps of smoke rose from his hand, but his body was unharmed. What? The two vampires' expressions froze. Chapter 887. When everything calmed down and everything returned to normal, the atmosphere in the air was deathly still. The two vampires were completely dumbfounded. and they no longer had the slightest reaction. The reason why vampires were known as the most powerful demon race was because they could freely command familiars without suffering the side effects of devouring lives. But now, the familiar beasts they were so proud of had been stopped by someone else's bare fists, and the other party was completely unharmed. Even if the other party is an attack mage who specializes in dealing with demons, the two vampires couldn't accept it. Little did they know, Wu Yan's heart was also in turmoil. Even though they had just reached the 7th tier, the familiars summoned by the most ordinary of vampires with mediocre bloodlines had actually depleted a full 10% of his mana in the clash with them. Wu Yan isn't some random vampire. He's a primogenitor who stands at the pinnacle of all vampires. If he used this 10% of his mana to maintain the daily operations of Itagami Island, it would be enough to last an entire month. And now, this 10% of his mana was used up in the clash with two vampires' familiars. No wonder vassal beasts were called the strongest among the demons by vampires. No wonder these otherworldly summoned beasts are synonymous with destruction and destruction. No wonder they're called the embodiment of magic. He flexed his hand, which is still smoking. The two vampires aren't done yet. But Wu Yan's eyes were filled with joy. He's fully experienced the might of his familiars. He believed that the familiars he summoned would be several times stronger than the familiars summoned by the two ordinary vampires. This would definitely become one of his strongest attacks. The time to summon his familiars is imminent. Wu Yan took a deep breath to suppress his excitement. He looked at the two stunned vampires. His gaze was no longer as cold as before. Instead, it's friendlier. Since you've helped me out, I won't make things difficult for you two. I won't make things difficult for you guys. Waving his hand, Wu Yan is in a good mood. Without waiting for the two vampires to respond, Wu Yan walked up to Kotori. He patted her shoulder, who had been standing quietly in the same place. All right, let's go. We'll be in trouble when the island's guards arrive. Kotori ignored Wu Yan. Instead, his expression seemed a little strange. He stared straight ahead in a certain direction and muttered to himself. Something's not right, that person. Wu Yan tilted his head and followed Kotori's gaze. When he saw the scene in front of him, he was stunned. In the corner, a girl about the same age as Kotori, 14 or 15 years old, is sitting on the ground. Her hair is tied into a ponytail with a blue ribbon. She's wearing a school uniform. Her petite face isn't as sweet as Kotori's, but she's still very cute. Her big round eyes have the same burgundy color as Wu Yan's. However, her eyes are filled with extreme fear and terror. She stared blankly at Wu Yan and the two vampires. Her emotions are clearly directed at Wu Yan and the two vampires. Wu Yan frowned when he saw the girl slumped on the ground. That girl. Wu Yan scratched his face and lowered his head. He seems a little familiar. Kotori seemed to have heard Wu Yan. She shifted her gaze from the girl to Wu Yan. Her eyes are filled with disdain. Have you fallen to the point where you call a cute girl a familiar face? This sentence successfully woke Wu Yan up from his memories. He almost fell over as the corner of his mouth twitched. Am I that thirsty? Who knows? Kotori pursed her lips and hesitated. Is that girl okay? She doesn't look right. Why didn't she take refuge? Wu Yan is confused. The alarm was so loud, it's impossible for a normal person to come here. She looks like a normal person. Who knows? Kotori didn't say anything else. Only Wu Yan knows that Kotori's mind is spinning rapidly. She's probably thinking about something. The two vampires are nowhere to be seen. The delinquent who was kicked away by Wu Yan is also gone. Only Wu Yan, Kotori, and the girl sitting there staring blankly at Wu Yan are left. The atmosphere is very strange. Wu Yan's eyes darted around as if he's hesitating. In the end, he couldn't suppress his curiosity and walked towards the girl. The girl gives him a familiar feeling. It shouldn't be an illusion. After all, he has full memory. But this also confirms that he hasn't met her before. If he did, Wu Yan wouldn't have forgotten her. Then, with his full memory, there's only one possibility for her to give him a familiar feeling even though he doesn't have any impression of her. This girl is most likely a character from the original story of this dungeon world. It's a pity that Wu Yin, who isn't that familiar with the skill, can't recall it. At that time, he didn't have full memory, and even if he did, he wouldn't be able to recall all of his previous memories. He can only try to get in touch with her. As Wu Yin approached, the girl's blank gaze followed Wu Yin. When Wu Yin was in front of her, the girl raised her head. Her blank expression is very cute. That, Wu Yin thought about his words and waved his hand. You. Wu Yan's words seemed to have awakened the girl from her stupor. Her pair of beautiful eyes were filled with fear and dread. The girl shrieked and interrupted Wu Yan's words. No, no. Like a young girl who had seen a ghost at night, the young girl moved her legs and moved backward while screaming in horror. No, no, no. Wu. She hugged her head and shook it with all her might. The girl's fear is on full display. Wu Yan stiffened up, and he quickly opened his mouth. Don't be afraid, I mean no harm. Don't come over. Don't come over. The young girl didn't listen to anything and continued to move her body in fear. The expression in her eyes was clearly an expression of extreme fear. If this continued, it wouldn't be strange if her nerves collapsed due to fear. Don't, demon, this. Wu Yan didn't know what to do. He could only retreat and try not to get close to the girl. Coterie narrowed her eyes. This girl seems to have a phobia towards demons. Demons? Phobia? Wu Yan looked at Coterie in shock and pointed at his own nose. Are you saying that she mistook me for a demon? Coterie rolled her eyes and grumbled. You're a demon, you vampire. But Wu Yan was confused. I didn't summon a familiar. I didn't bare my fangs. Coterie sighed and pointed at Wu Yan's eyes with her jewel. But your eyes changed color, didn't they? Wu Yan froze for a moment. Then he remembered his eyes changed color because he got too excited after witnessing the power of a familiar. I'm afraid this girl was just passing by and happened to see you fighting those two vampires. She has a phobia towards demons, so she didn't run away immediately. She was lucky enough to see you use your bloodline. Coterie shook her head and glanced at Wu Yan. It's best if you don't get close to her for now. Ugh. Wu Yan's eyebrows twitched. He felt helpless. All right. Wu Yan looked at the trembling girl and pursed his lips. He was about to leave with Coterie when a crisp voice entered his ears. You really did cause a ruckus. Chapter 888. It's really a big mess, a crisp, tender, and majestic voice echoed. Wu Yan and Coterie, who were about to leave, froze. Someone's here. No, that's not the main point. The most important thing was that the two of them didn't even notice that someone had come. After exchanging glances with each other, the two of them relaxed their bodies and slowly turned around. They raised their heads and looked in front of them. Dust was still rising from the crater caused by the familiar beast's attack. Pieces of gravel rolled down from above and landed in the pitch-black crater, producing a strange rustling sound. Small but clearly visible cracks spread out from the center of the crater, stopping only when they were about 10 meters away. With that as the boundary, the rest of the streets were still intact. In the middle of the smoking crater, a petite figure is standing there. She's even smaller than Coterie and only slightly taller than Flanderchan. She was wearing a black, pleated Gothic lowly outfit. She looked like a princess, but also like a noble. Her long black hair hung down to her waist and was divided into several bundles. The ends of her hair were slightly curled up like a tornado. It didn't look exaggerated, but it was very pleasing to the eye. She's holding a parasol in one hand and a lace fan of the same color as her outfit in the other. Her face is exquisite. Her facial features are as beautiful as a sculpted doll. Even Wu Yan, who's used to being surrounded by beauties, can't find anything wrong with her face. She looks very young. She's a beautiful girl. To be more precise, rather than calling her a beautiful young lady, it would be more appropriate to call her a young girl. After all, her height. She's not even 5 meters tall. Blinking his eyes, Wu Yan's expression is more or less one of shock. Could it be the person who snuck up behind me without me noticing? Could it be this little girl? He and Coterie exchanged glances with each other as they looked at the petite girl. They both activated their system perception. They scanned the girl. Not Suki Nangong. Level 82, when the words level 82 entered Wu Yin and Kotori's mind, they froze in shock. Then, they became even more shocked. The little girl in front of him was only a little older than Flandre-chan and Yoshino. She's a Tier 9 powerhouse. This. Wu Yin opened his mouth. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. You can't judge a book by its cover. Kotori nodded in agreement. Her red eyes kept sizing up the girl. But she's pretty cute. The goth girl named Natsuki seemed to have sensed something she didn't like. She met Wu Yin and Kotori's gazes with her sapphire eyes. She slowly parted her lips. So it's you two? The source of the abnormal mana. Wu Yin and Kotori reacted. They frowned and looked at Natsuki. Could it be? Wu Yin asked Natsuki Nangong with uncertainty. You're an attack mage of Itagami Island? Yes. Well, there are people who have taken up such positions. Natsuki raised her parasol. She used an immature, yet dignified voice to say that. Wu Yin couldn't help but feel a little helpless. I didn't expect an attack mage to be dispatched for a small brawl. Itagami Island security, sure, is good. A small brawl? Natsuki Nangong looked at Wu Yin with a smile. She pointed at the hole in the ground. So this is considered brawl? If that's the case, I'll have to reevaluate your abilities. But you are right. Nangong Natsuki changed the topic and slowly walked over. It's just an abnormal mana. There's no need to dispatch an attack mage. Natsuki walked over to Wu Yin and Kotori. She walked past the two of them and stopped next to the girl with a phobia of demons. She stared down at her from above. My students are trembling in fear. As a teacher, I can't ignore it. Teacher, Kotori stopped spinning her pearl and looked at Natsuki Nangong strangely. You said you're a teacher? Although your reaction is similar to what I expected, it still makes me a little unhappy. Natsuki clicked her tongue and turned around to look at the girl who was paralyzed on the ground. You're Koju's sister, Koja Nagisa, right? Nangong Natyu's serious face didn't change at all, but there was a trace of pity in her eyes. Pull yourself together. Ugh. The girl called Nagisa, Nangong finally noticed someone standing in front of her. She looked up in fear and saw Natsuki Nangong's petite figure. After being stunned for a moment, Xiao Nagisa finally reacted. There was a tear drop at the corner of her eyes as she threw herself at Natsuki. Sensei Nangong. All right, stop crying. Natsuki Nangong sighed and patted Nagisa's shoulder. She then turned to Wu Yin and Kotori. Her gaze turned hostile. You guys seem to have made my student cry. Oi, wait a minute. Don't accuse an innocent person. Wu Yin quickly shook his head to prove his innocence. Yeah. Kotori pointed at Wu Yin with one hand on her waist. He's the one who made that girl cry, not me. Kotori, Wu Yin was at a loss for words. Strictly speaking, Nagisa was the one who was afraid. But if he didn't approach her, she wouldn't be this scared. It's not wrong to say that he made her cry. No, I definitely didn't make her cry. Wu Yin tried his best to deny it. He said righteously, how can I do something as ungentlemanly as making a girl cry? Huh? Kotori's gaze turned hostile. You rascal, you've been plotting all along, haven't you? Why would you come to such a conclusion? Seeing the two siblings ignore her and stand in front of her, quarreling as if there was no one else around, Nangong Nayu's forehead was filled with wrinkles. However, if one looked carefully, they would see that the faint trace of wariness in her eyes was slowly lowering. Even Nagisa, who was looking at Wu Yin with fear, was stunned by the scene in front of her. The fear in her eyes was still there, but it wasn't as strong as before. Enough! Natsuki Nangong couldn't stand the noise and raised her hand to stop them. If you want to flirt, you can continue later. Don't be an eyesore here. Why would you come to such a conclusion? Ooh, who's flirting? In short, Natsuki Nangong closed her eyes and placed the parasol on her shoulder. The two of you come with me. Tell me what happened. Of course, if you want the guards to investigate, that's fine as well. Natsuki raised her parasol, and she started walking down the street. Nagisa followed her with a panicked expression. She didn't want to stay in the same place as Wu Yin even if she had to die. She followed behind Natsuki, and she didn't want to stay in the same place as Wu Yin. Wu Yin was speechless as he watched Natsuki Nangong leave with Nagisa. He couldn't help but complain. She's leaving just like that? Aren't she afraid we won't follow? Of course not. Of course she's not afraid, Coterie said exasperatedly. She has the strength of a tier 9, and she saw our faces. Plus, she was able to hide behind us without us noticing. It's easy for her to find us on this man-made island. That's true. Wu Yin had a headache. He asked Coterie, then, should we follow? Of course. Why wouldn't you go? Coterie revealed a seductive smile as her eyes lit up with interest. Maybe we can get some information from her. After all, you're not that familiar with this world. That's true, Wu Yin muttered and nodded. Then let's follow. Chapter 889. Saikai Academy is responsible for teaching middle school and high school students. It's one of the few high-class academies in Itagami City. Compared to Itagami City, which is known as the Demon Special District, Saikai Academy is considered a normal academy. There are no beastmen, no vampires, and no other demons. The students here are mostly normal humans. One of the reasons why the term basically was used to describe the academy was because the registered demons wouldn't come here to study. However, some unknown demons could hide their identities and move about in the academy. Although there weren't many examples, it wasn't like there weren't any. The second reason is that the term normal humans is used to describe them. After all, humans like magicians and superhumans with superpowers would not be any different from normal humans on the surface. There was an office in a staff office building in Kaihai Academy High School. It was located on the top floor of this office building with a very broad view. Its location was even higher than that of the headmaster's office of Kaihai Academy. Its interior was also very luxurious. The ground was covered with a thick carpet embroidered with dazzling patterns. Luxurious mats were hung on the wall near the entrance. Each piece of furniture looked like valuable antiques from a long time ago. In addition to the fact that it took up more than half of the entire top floor, anyone who walked in here would probably think that it was the room of a royal family instead of teacher's office. This luxurious office is Natsuki Nangong's office. Natsuki Nangong is an English teacher in Saikai Academy's high school. She's also an instructor in Itagami City's police force. She's a professional attack magician. Itagami City is a special district for demons. Here, powerful demons can be seen everywhere. Compared to these demons, they are nothing. Normal humans are no doubt the weakest, let alone middle school and high school students. In order to prevent the normal students from being affected by the demon invasion, all educational facilities in Itagami City were strictly regulated, in order to ensure the safety of normal students. Therefore, it's necessary to assign a certain number of attack magicians to the educational facilities. Natsuki Nangong. She's one of Itagami City's attack magicians assigned to Saikai Academy. However, Natsuki Nangong prefers her position as a teacher. To her, teaching is her true profession. Attack magician is just a side job. She's different from her immature and dignified appearance. Natsuki Nangong loves her job as a teacher. It shows how much she loves her students. Even if the student was not taught by her, like Nagisa, who was a student of Saikai Academy Junior High School, she was loved by Natsuki even though Nagisa was older than Natsuki. According to Natsuki Nangong, she's 26 years old this year. 26 years old. Looking at the petite 15-year-old girl sitting on the large, luxurious sofa, Wu Yin couldn't keep his cool as he smirked. Why, you're about the same age as me? I couldn't tell. Natsuki looked a bit unhappy. She frowned as she looked at Wu Yin with a surprised look. You're about the same age as me. Aren't you a demon? The general vitality of the demon race was much higher than that of humans. Among them, the vampire race was known to be immortal, and their lifespan was almost infinite. Although the average demon race's lifespan was not as long as the vampire race's, it was more than enough for them to live for 100 or 80 years. That's why one can't judge a demon's age by their appearance. Natsuki Nangong thought Wu Yin was at least 40 years old. What are you surprised about? Wu Yin couldn't help but ridicule Natsuki Nangong. If someone like you can be 26 years old, why can't I be a little younger as a demon? Natsuki Nangong looked at Wu Yin meaningfully. It's not like I've never seen a young demon before. Natsuki Nangong closed her eyes and sipped her tea. However, this is the first time I've seen a young devil who possesses such a powerful devil power like yours. The strength of demons was largely related to their age. The longer they lived, the stronger the magic power they stored, and the stronger their strength. Although there was no lack of existences who were born with very powerful magic power, no matter how powerful they were, their innate magic power could not reach Wu Yan's level. With Natsuki's strength, even if she couldn't sense how much mana Wu Yan had, she could still faintly feel it. Just this little bit was enough to surprise her. If Wu Yan was really the same age as her, then the abilities of this demon who came out of nowhere. Nangong Natyue felt that she seemed to have underestimated this seemingly harmless young devil. Of course, Natsuki Nangong didn't know that unlike the demons in this world who slowly grew their magic power over time, Wu Yan had a method to cultivate his own magic power. Furthermore, it was the best kind of method. In terms of magic power, forget about the demons who have lived for a long time. Even the 4 primogenitors in this world might not be able to compare to him. The reason why the true ancestors were so powerful was because they were the oldest vampires. They had lived for the longest time and were immortal. The vast amount of time they had accumulated was the source of their power. Through the long period of time, they had increased their magic power. Coupled with their unlimited life force, their familiars were naturally the most powerful of all vampires. From this point of view, Wu Yan, who can cultivate his own magic power and obtain magic power comparable to the 4 primogenitors in a short period of time, or perhaps even more powerful, was very generous. Then, tell me, what kind of demon are you? Wu Yan blinked when he heard Natsuki's question. He didn't try to hide anything from her. Vampire. Vampire. Natsuki looked at Wu Yan suspiciously. Are you kidding me? Do vampires in their 20s have as much magic power as you? Wu Yan rolled his eyes. He was too lazy to explain and directly used his actions to prove it. Its wine-red eyes instantly turned golden, and sharp but tiny fangs gently extended from its mouth. Seeing Wu Yan use his own bloodline, Nangong Natyue was stunned. She looked at his eyes with surprise. Aren't vampires' eyes really red? Why is yours golden? Well, who knows? Wu Yan withdrew his vampire posture and said jokingly, perhaps it's because of this that I was able to obtain such a large amount of mana at such a young age. Oh. Natsuki narrowed her eyes and took another sip of black tea. Well, let's put it that way for now. But you should be careful with that amount of mana. Your familiar shouldn't be an ordinary creature, right? Don't let it roam around. I don't want to have to catch you. Don't worry, I don't have any familiars. Well, that would be... Natsuki Nangong paused. What did you say? You don't have any familiars? Yeah. Wu Yan admitted it without hesitation. I don't have any familiars. You're joking with me, aren't you? Natsuki Nangong stopped drinking her tea. She seriously suspected that Wu Yan had been toying with her the entire time. A vampire saying that he doesn't have a vampire's strongest trump card, a familiars? But that's the truth. Wu Yan sighed and shrugged. At the very least, I don't have any familiars in my bloodline. You can check if you don't believe me. Natsuki Nangong saw the helpless expression on Wu Yan's face. He didn't look like he was faking it. She underestimated the man in front of her. Chapter 890. Familiars are very important to vampires. Apart from their near-limitless vitality, vampires were considered the weakest among the demons in terms of physical strength and battle prowess. The reason why they were known as the strongest among the demons was due to the powerful vassal beasts that were bred in their blood. Therefore, vampires were the best of the best, and familiars were the best of the best. Once a vampire was born, the first thing they would do would be to summon their familiars from the other world and nurture them in their own blood for their own use. But now, a vampire in his 20s not only possessed tremendous magic power, but he also didn't have a familiar beast. Yet, he was able to single-handedly take on 2 vampires who had summoned their familiars. Originally, The only reason Natsuki Nangong had shown up at such a place was because one of her students was there and something seemed to have happened. Otherwise, as a top-level attack mage, she wouldn't have shown up for something as common as the detection of abnormal mana. Instead, she brought Wu Yin and Nagisa here. It was just a spur-of-the-moment thought of protecting Nagisa. Now, Natsuki Nangong is really interested in the man in front of her. No matter how you look at it, this vampire is different. He is full of mysteries. If possible, Natsuki Nangong would like to unravel all these mysteries. What an incredible vampire. Natsuki Nangong didn't hide her curiosity. Her gem-like eyes stared at Wu Yin as if she wanted to see through him, but she didn't ask. Natsuki Nangong is smart enough to know. He won't tell her the real secret. Wu Yin, on the other hand, felt a bit uncomfortable being stared at by this little girl who is full of charm in all aspects. He picked up the cup of black tea in front of him. He covered his face like he was trying to hide something. Don't look at me like that. I don't have a familiar yet, but I will have one sooner or later. Besides, I'm not a vampire who only relies on familiars. I know some magic. Magic? Nangong Natsuki shook her head. In the demon race, only a very small portion of them knew magic. They were all innately powerful existences, and all of them were well-known figures. However, Natsuki wasn't surprised by Wu Yan's powerful mana. Natsuki turned to Kotori, who had been staring at the door without saying a word, and spoke in a tired tone. Then, what kind of demon race are you? Don't confuse me with him, Kotori retorted. I'm a real human. Indeed, Kotori was a human. She only became an elf because she was forcefully stuffed with elf energy. To be more precise, she was a human with elf energy. Moreover, Kotori cared more about her identity as a human. She didn't hate elves, but she didn't like them either. Besides, there are plenty of humans with elf energy in this world. They weren't directly assimilated into elves. They still call themselves humans. Natsuki's expression changed after hearing Kotori's answer. A vampire and a human brother and sister pair? This is really interesting. Kotori pursed her lips and continued staring at the door. Wu Yin smiled bitterly. He suddenly remembered something and asked Natsuki. All right, Natsuki, you're an attack mage, right? Can I take that as a stupid question? Nangong Nayu expressionlessly drank her black tea. She had clearly revealed her identity before. Wu Yin scratched his head in embarrassment and asked in a serious tone. Then, do you have a way to make me an attack mage in Itagami Island? I say, are you really a vampire? Natsuki Nangong felt that she was more surprised today than she had been in the past year. She stood there in a daze. It's strange enough that you don't have a familiar, yet you want to become an attack mage? Don't you know that attack mages specialize in fighting demons? Well, Wu Yin laughed awkwardly and raised his hand weakly. I have my own difficulties as well. You don't have to treat me like a vampire. Nangong Natyue was speechless. She was now certain that the vampire in front of her was not an ordinary vampire. Speaking of which, normal vampires don't have familiars, and they don't want to become an attack mage to deal with their own kind. Natsuki has seen a lot today, and she's learned a lot from her experience. However, it was undeniable that Natsuki Nangong was somewhat interested. Natsuki's blue eyes flashed with a smile that Wu Yin couldn't understand. She leaned back on the sofa and waved her fan at Wu Yin. All right, I'll take care of this for you. Wu Yin was speechless when he heard Natsuki's confident tone. This petite 26-years-old little girl in front of him didn't seem to be an ordinary attack mage since she agreed to such a difficult request so easily. Huh, what did I say also? Scratching his head in confusion, Wu Yin nodded and said with a smile, Thank you, Natsuki. Natsuki snorted and she turned her head away. She started sipping her tea again. Wu Yin raised his cup and took a sip. He stopped what he was doing and he helplessly put his cup back on the table. What's wrong? Natsuki frowned when she saw Wu Yan's actions. She seemed dissatisfied with Wu Yan's actions. Despite her petite appearance, Natsuki Nangong had an unusual preference for black tea. No, that it's nothing. Wu Yan didn't know about Natsuki's hobbies, so he answered honestly. It's just that this black tea doesn't suit my taste. That's true. Kotari also took a sip and frowned. It's worse than the ones you make. In the past, when Natsuki heard such comments, even if she didn't flip out, she wouldn't be in a good mood. But Kotari's last sentence made Natsuki's eyes light up. You know how to make black tea? Just a little bit. Wu Yin took out a few new cups from a tea set. He waved his hand and crimson spatial ripples appeared in his hand. Then, a delicate teapot appeared in his hand. He lifted the teapot. Seeing this, Natsuki's attention shifted away from the teapot. Spatial manipulation? Magic? This is just the effect of the item. Wu Yin poured himself a cup of tea. I know spatial manipulation magic, but I'm not at the level where I can create a space to store items. Oh, I didn't expect you to know the same type of magic as me. Natsuki said nonchalantly. Wu Yin and Kotari understood what she's trying to do. No wonder Natsuki Nangong was able to silently appear behind him. It turned out that she knew spatial manipulation magic. At this time, Nangong Nayu, who had just taken a sip of black tea, was startled. Then her eyes suddenly lit up. What a unique taste. It's not bad. You can have it if you like. Wu Yin generously handed the teapot to Natsuki. I have more if it's not enough. I can make more if I don't have enough. Natsuki nodded with a smile. She looked at Wu Yin with interest. She confirmed a certain plan in her heart. Hey, suddenly, Kotari turned to the door and said, don't you want to have a drink? Everyone's gaze turned towards the direction of the door. What they saw was a girl with a ponytail hiding behind the door with only her head sticking out. However, when Wu Yin's gaze also turned towards her, the girl immediately got startled and hid her head behind the door like a tortoise. Wu Yin felt hurt by Natsuki's actions. He forced a smile and waved at her weakly. Come and have a taste. It's delicious. Natsuki ignored Wu Yin and continued to look at him with fear. This hurt Wu Yin even more. He won't admit to being hated by a girl. Chapter 891. The hierarchy of vampires is very strict. Based on the purity of their bloodline, there is a huge difference in the strength of vampires. The purer the bloodline, the stronger the vampire. On the other hand, vampires with mixed bloodlines are weaker. After all, blood is the most important element in a vampire's body, more important than the brain and heart. Blood is the source of a vampire's magic power, and the medium used to summon familiars. Vampires raise familiars in their blood, sacrificing their life force to drive them into battle, giving them the foundation of their existence. Thus, the purity of a vampire's bloodline is very important. It is directly related to the strength of the vampire's body. As everyone knew, the lifespan of vampires was very long, so long that it was almost infinite. During their long lifespan, they could gradually increase the magic power in their body through survival. They could also absorb the blood of others to obtain more powerful magic power from the blood. Therefore, the longer a vampire lived, the more blood they had sucked and the more powerful magic they gained from the blood. Therefore, in general, those ancient vampires would have more power than young vampires. Of course, it was only in general. A pure-blooded vampire, even if just born, is stronger than a non-pure-blooded vampire who has lived for an unknown amount of time. As the source of their power, the purity of their blood gives them an innate advantage. That kind of advantage isn't something that can be matched by the accumulation of time alone. On the other hand, pure-blooded vampires who have lived for an unknown amount of time have the power of their ancestor, the origin of all vampires. It's even more difficult to match. After a long history, vampires have developed to a certain extent and are recognized by the world. Based on their bloodline and how long they have lived, vampires are divided into 5 ranks. The first rank, Xiongui, they are inferior vampires who can't summon familiars and can't use their power. Vampires' true strength lies in their familiars. Vampires who can't control their familiars are very weak among the demons. Without their familiars, vampires can't even withstand a single blow from demons or even humans. Therefore, Xiongui are the lowest rank of vampires. They have always been despised and despised by pure-blooded vampires. The second level, the younger generation of vampires. They were also the most ordinary of vampires. Their bloodlines weren't pure, and they hadn't existed for long. As a result, their magic power wasn't very abundant, and the familiars they could command weren't very powerful, but they were still far more powerful than the average demon. Even the weakest familiars were more powerful than the latest fighter jets and tanks. Vampires at this level were enough to strike fear into the hearts of the world. The third level, vampires of the old generation. They had lived for a very long time, and the magic power in their bodies was immense. The familiars they commanded had reached a level that couldn't be ignored. A single attack from them was enough to destroy a small village. Some pure-blooded old-generation vampires were even more powerful. If left to their own devices, it was not impossible for them to destroy a city. Their existence itself was seen as comparable to an army. One could only imagine how powerful the old generation of vampires were. The fourth rank, Elder. They were the purest vampires, the second-generation vampires, only second to the true ancestor. They were acknowledged by the true ancestor and were given a portion of the true ancestor's blood. Although they weren't necessarily the true ancestor's flesh and blood, the true ancestor's blood contained the true ancestor's blood. But because they have the blood of the true ancestor, blood is the source of vampires' magic power, and their power is incomparably powerful. Apart from the true ancestor, they were the most powerful vampires. The final level of vampires was the true ancestor. As the oldest of vampires and the kings of all other vampires, the true ancestor had the most powerful magic power. Their familiars were powerful enough to destroy an entire empire. Vampires were the strongest of all demons, and the true ancestor was the strongest of all vampires. That was why the true ancestor was publicly recognized as the strongest of all demons. They were truly immortal and lived longer than anyone else. That was why there were so few true ancestors. There were only 4 of them, and only 3 were publicly recognized. If there were more true ancestors, then the ones controlling the world wouldn't be humans, but demons. Among the 5 levels of vampires, there was basically no one who could surpass this limit. It was not that easy to do so. Bloodline was the key. The purer the bloodline, the higher the level of the vampire, and the stronger they would be. It was not impossible for a low-level vampire to be stronger than a high-level vampire, but it was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. It wasn't impossible for the younger generation of vampires to quickly gain great power. They only needed to use the method of cannibalism to directly devour vampires who were of a higher level than themselves and steal the magic power from the blood of the higher-level vampires. In other words, they had to steal the bloodline that symbolized the existence and power of other vampires. However, this method wasn't very practical, devouring the blood of stronger vampires. Even if they sucked all of their blood dry, their body would be taken over by the stronger vampires. Then, they would be devoured by the stronger vampires instead. It was very dangerous, unless they were stronger than the vampires themselves, or if the vampires were tired of living and gave their blood to them, they wouldn't succeed. This was the main reason why younger vampires couldn't defeat higher-ranked vampires. Of course, there were exceptions. Just like how there were humans who were born with superpowers like the Overdaptors, there were also a small number of vampires who had special abilities that were different from other vampires. If this ability could greatly increase one's strength to the extent of surpassing vampires of a higher level, then the vampires would be able to break through the limit of level. When that happens, it wouldn't be impossible to use the true ancestor's bloodline principle to gain more power, but it's very difficult. Natsuki's guess is that Wu Yan is one of those vampires with special abilities. That's why his pupils changed color when he turned into a vampire. Despite his young age, he already has the magical power of a normal vampire. That's why, when Wu Yan decided to summon his familiar, Natsuki offered to provide the venue. With Wu Yan's magical power, the familiar he summoned would definitely be something special. If something went wrong during his first summon, Itagami City would be in big trouble. Natsuki had to find a safe place to rest assured. Natsuki didn't know that Wu Yin wasn't a vampire with special abilities. He might be different from the vampires in this world, but he is a primogenitor. Natsuki might have made a mistake, but her approach was correct. If the primogenitor's familiar causes a ruckus in Itagami City, this man-made island would be destroyed. Itagami City, in an isolated area, and Natsuki looked at Wu Yin in amazement. She praised him. You might be a vampire, but to be able to create a barrier of this level, your mastery of magic is much greater than most magicians who think highly of themselves. Well, it's not bad, right? Wu Yin stopped drawing the spell formation, and he stopped channeling mana into it. He nodded with a satisfied look. Even though I know how to construct it, this is my first time using it. I'm already at my limit, considering the time it takes to construct it. I don't know if I should be happy or depressed if I still can't stop the familiars with it. If they can't stop the vassal beast, they will have to pay the price of turning Itagami Island upside down. If they can stop the vassal beast, they will have to prove the strength of the barrier and their mastery of magic. Either way, it's something to be happy about. It's no wonder Wu Yin is so conflicted. All right, you should start as well. Natsuki raised her parasol and looked at the night sky. It's the darkest hour of the night. There's no better time than now for nocturnal creatures like vampires. Wu Yin nodded. He took a deep breath. Golden light began to swirl in his eyes. Chapter 892. Closing his eyes, Wu Yin slowly mobilized the mana in his body. Like water flowing out of a dam, the mana started to burn from slow to fast. Waves of mana started to form on the ground under his feet. Like a whirlpool, it slowly rose into the sky. Not long after, every corner of the whole scene was filled with abnormally dense magic power, blowing smoke and dust as strong as a gust of wind. It was like the scene before a fighter jet took off. There were swirling airflows everywhere, as if they could topple mountains and overturn seas. It was extremely spectacular. This mana, Nangong Natsuya, who has been quietly observing Wu Yin from the side, suddenly changed her expression. Her gem-like eyes slightly narrowed. Her expression was grave and somewhat frightening. Nangong Natsuya knows Wu Yin's mana is enormous. So much so that some old generation vampires might not be able to match it. But she didn't expect the mana hidden in Wu Yin's body to be so enormous. This was no longer a level that vampires could possess. It wasn't that Natsuya hadn't seen such a powerful mana before. However, because of this calm and powerful attack mage was a bit frightened. Normally, this would be the case. It is very rare to see such a thing. Looking at Wu Yin, who is bathed in mana, Nangong Natsuya's expression is no longer as calm as before. Instead, it is filled with a strange gravity. Her mouth is muttering something. True ancestor. That's right, Nangong Natsuya has only seen such powerful mana in a true ancestor. This guy, Nangong Natsuya, gritted her teeth and coldly snorted. I hope I don't witness the birth of a demon king. On the other side, Wu Yin didn't know what Nangong Natsuya is thinking. His consciousness is connected to the other world where the familiars live. He clenched his fist. He raised it in front of him. Then, Wu Yin started chanting the words that came out of his mouth like he was chanting, "With my blood as the guide. Call out your true names. From now on, my life will be devoured by you. With my blood as your foundation. Absorb your power into this body. Follow my command. Summon beasts from other worlds who follow this contract. If you are willing to follow the contract, descend upon me, in the name of Wu Yin." A chant that was as profound as ancient runes echoed clearly in the surroundings. Ignoring the wind that blotted out the sky, he also ignored the roiling magic power. As if it has a form, it moved up and down until the last rune fell. Heaven and earth became silent. Wu Yin lifted his hand, and a drop of blood appeared on his fingertip. It defied gravity and floated up. When it reached a height of 10 meters in the air, the drop of blood evaporated into a puff of blood mist and disappeared into thin air. Wong, a tiny black, suddenly appeared at the spot where the blood chi had disappeared. It spun up and spread out like water. Not long after, a spinning black hole appeared in midair. A surge of magic power surged out from within, blowing down and crashing onto the ground like a meteorite. Dawn! A suffocating pressure came down like a mountain without any warning. Space seemed to be unable to bear the pressure and let out a wail. At the scene, the gale evolved into a storm and swept in all directions. At the back, Nangong Natyue could no longer hold up her parasol. She stood on the ground and maintained her posture. Her long black hair was fluttering along with her clothes. She stared at Wu Yin in front of her. Nangong Natyue's face was full of astonishment. What a powerful mana! Is that guy really just a vampire with a special ability? Nangong Natyue paused as if she sensed something. She raised her head and looked at the black hole in the sky. It's coming. Just as he finished speaking, two beams of light shot out from the black hole that was floating in the air and smashed into the ground. Rumble. Amidst the rumbling, a white flame and a burst of black lightning appeared out of thin air like an explosion and blasted out in all directions. The white flame was like a violent whirlpool. Wherever it passed, whether it was the air current or the ground, it didn't burn or incinerate. Instead, it disappeared as if it never existed and returned to its origin. The black lightning was like a meteor falling from the sky. Wherever it passed, no matter if it was the barrier or the space, everything was shattered in the blink of an eye. Everything was shattered like glass when it came into contact with the lightning. An unknown power acted on the flame and lightning, wreaking havoc. That kind of flame and lightning. I have never seen such a thing before. Nangong Natyue's voice changed a bit. That was the result of her suppressing her impatience. Her eyes were glued to the scene. Nangong Natyue inhaled the air filled with demonic energy. She tightened her grip on the parasol. She saw it. Amidst the white flames and the black lightning, two dragon-like creatures, one black and one white, stood on their feet and gradually condensed into a single entity. The white dragon-like creature was tossing and turning in the white flames. The white flames on its body were like its fur, fluttering along with the fluctuations of the flames. Its entire body was white, but its eyes were blue. Two long whiskers and ribbons of flame slowly fluttered in between the dragon's eyebrows, appearing very elegant. Its arm-like wings spread out on both sides of its body, and in the middle of its wings, there was a pair of sharp dragon claws. A tail made of white flames swayed back like long hair, as if it was preparing to fire some heavy artillery. Inside, wisps of white flames appeared and fell. Every time it went back and forth, there would be sparks accompanying it, spreading in the surrounding space, causing the atmosphere to silently turn into nothingness. Noble, elegant. The black dragon-like creature was bathed in black lightning. Most of its body was black, but some parts were darker than the rest of its body. It had blood-red eyes and a crown on its head. The joints of its limbs were made of black bones, and there were steel wings on its shoulders that looked like shoulder pads. The base of its wings had the same kind of armor that spread out like a fan or a net. The inner end of the wings had wing spikes. Its arms were like a baseball glove, with a three-clawed black hand inside. On its back, there was a thick tail with spikes that looked like a huge cone. It was humming like an engine. Vaguely, a terrifying destructive force was expanding along with the humming sound, as if it could explode at any time. It was quite terrifying, domineering. Black and white dragons, black lightning, and white flames danced on the platform. They lined up together like two kings with different auras. One is as noble as a god. The other is as domineering as a general. Then, under the witness of the heavens and earth, they merged into Wu Yan's body along with the flames and lightning. Heaven and earth returned to normal. However, the stage was in ruins. The barrier that cost Wu Yin a lot of effort disappeared without him noticing. Fortunately, the power of the black and white dragons didn't spread to the outside world in time to affect Itagami Island. In the center of the stage, Wu Yin opened his eyes. His golden pupils turned back to a wine-red color. His eyes were filled with joy. It was clear that he liked these two familiars very much. Natsuki quietly watched the happy Wu Yin. A drop of sweat silently slid down her forehead. Natsuki forced a smile. Looks like I've summoned two incredible fellows. Wu Yin turned around when he heard Natsuki's voice. He flashed a big smile. Anyone could see that he was in a good mood. However, Wu Yin soon regretted his decision. Even though the familiars are strong, why are there only two of them? Natsuki glanced at Wu Yin. She didn't say anything, and she stayed silent. Only she knew that it wasn't that Wu Yin didn't have the ability to summon more familiars. Perhaps only those two familiars were qualified to respond to his summons. Chapter 893. Now that he has a familiar, Wu Yin found out that familiars don't just have destructive power beyond their level. They also have a lot of other benefits. Vassal beasts are a collection of mana with a will. In other words, the mana is the vassal beasts themselves. Vampires could infuse large amounts of mana into their blood. Even though they needed mana to summon vassal beasts, the mana of the vassal beasts would be amplified by the host's mana when they were first summoned and infused into the host's blood. With a vassal beast, the host's mana will be increased, even if it's only once. In addition, Wu Yin can also release a portion of his vassal beast power for his own use. That's no ordinary ability. The abilities of the black and white dragons he summoned aren't your average abilities. The white flames and black lightning are a lot scarier than they look. Wu Yin understood the abilities of his two familiars. The flames and lightning aren't real flames and lightning. Wu Yin's expression suddenly changed while he was experiencing his vassal beast abilities. At the same time, a white flame and a black lightning burst out from his body as if they were out of his control. They disappeared in the blink of an eye, but Wu Yan's face is slightly flushed. It seems like things aren't as simple as they look. Natsuki narrowed her eyes when she saw this. It seems like you aren't able to control your vassal beasts. That strange phenomenon was obviously not Wu Yan's doing. It appeared on its own accord, just like this. It wasn't like Nangong. Natwe hadn't seen it before. Her student, who also has a few vassal beasts that can't be ignored, had a similar situation happen to him. It's a phenomenon that happens when a vassal beast isn't under his control. Natsuki furrowed her brows in frustration. Wu Yan's two vassal beasts aren't your average vassal beasts. In terms of mana, might, and abilities, they're even more troublesome than her student. If Wu Yan can't control his two vassal beasts, what's the difference between them and a ticking time bomb? Wu Yan heard Natsuki's words. She blinked her eyes mischievously, and the corners of her mouth curled into a thought-provoking arc. He raised his hands and placed them in front of the confused Nangong Natwe. Immediately after, a ball of white flame and a ball of black lightning shot out from his hands, giving Nangong Natwe fright. Wu Yan's magic power surged in his hands. The flames and lightning in his hands kept changing. Sometimes he had fire in his left hand and lightning in his right hand. Sometimes he had lightning in his left hand and fire in his right hand. He's having a lot of fun with these moves. Natsuki Nangong was stunned. It was rare for her to be in a daze. Didn't you just? Well, Wu Yan tossed the white flames and black lightning in his hands. He said nonchalantly, "It's the first time vassal beasts have appeared in my body." They were making a fuss, and I didn't react in time. Now, Wu Yan smiled confidently. No matter how much they make a fuss, once they enter my body and become mine, they won't be able to escape my control. Yes, the two powerful vassal beasts are a bit disobedient. However, Wu Yan has endless martial training. His mind, technique, and body are one. He can control his own abilities as he pleases. The black and white dragons have become his vassal beasts. There's no way they can escape his control. Vassal beasts have their own consciousness. When they learned of their master's miraculous abilities, they gave up on resisting. They obediently entered Wu Yan's blood and waited for his summons. One had to admit that vassal beasts had perfect consciousnesses. At the very least, they weren't like wild beasts that only relied on their instincts. That was why vassal beasts were so powerful. If they didn't have the heart to control their power, their evaluation of vassal beasts would drop by a few levels at the very least. Of course, it's also why vassal beasts going on a rampage isn't rare. For example, vassal beasts that don't have the ability to control their masters will go on a rampage due to anger or resentment. There aren't many of them. Natsuki's expression changed when she saw Wu Yan's confident expression. She turned to look at the white flame and black lightning in his hand. Her expression turned serious. Natsuki only realized how terrifying they are when she saw them up close. She didn't feel any heat from the white flame or the lightning. However, she could clearly sense a different kind of power. This was especially true for the black lightning. Maiden felt her heart palpitate when she looked at it. It's not that the black lightning is stronger than the white flame. It's just that Nangong Natwe feels that the black lightning is her natural enemy in a certain way. Natsuki took a deep breath, and her expression returned to normal. She returned to her usual dignified self. Hurry up and put them away. Really, you could have controlled them properly. Natsuki's tone is the same as usual, but Wu Yin detected a hint of anger in her tone. She probably thought Wu Yin was toying with her when she lost control of herself. That's probably why she's pissed off. Don't accuse me wrongly. Wu Yin immediately tried to clear his name. I wasn't toying with you. They really didn't listen to me back then. Nangong Natsuki looked at him in confusion. Why? Well, who knows? Wu Yin wasn't sure either, so he shrugged. Maybe they're like that unlucky student of yours. Because they've never sucked anyone's blood, they don't want to admit that they're real. Well, Wu Yin didn't know that the reason he came up with was a bit off, but it wasn't too far off. He accidentally hit the nail on the head. On the other hand, it was Nangong Natwe who exclaimed in surprise. You said you've never sucked anyone's blood? Is there a problem? Wu Yin felt a bit uncomfortable being stared at by Natsuki. It's not like I need to suck blood to fill my stomach. I also don't need to absorb mana from other people's blood. Why would I do that? Nangong Natwe stared blankly for a moment before nodding. Indeed, with your mana, you don't need to drink anyone's blood to replenish it. Natsuki turned around and said to Wu Yin as she walked away. She didn't even look at the ruins. Since we're done with the familiars, come with me to a place. A place? Wu Yin was surprised, but he quickly chased after her. Where are we going? Didn't you want to be an attack mage in Itagami Island? Natsuki glanced at Wu Yin. Yeah. Wu Yin's eyes lit up. Is there no problem? I just mentioned your request to those guys. Nangong Natsuki didn't even turn her head as she said, whether or not I can achieve my goal, I still have to test your ability. Oh. Wu Yin raised an eyebrow. So you're asking me to go for an interview? That's the gist of it. Natsuki continued. Fortunately, that little girl of yours who I don't know if she's your lover or younger sister took the initiative to send Nagisa back. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to bring you back so quickly. At this point, Nangong Natsuki looked at him with a strange smile that he couldn't understand. She seemed to be in a good mood as she muttered to herself. That's right. Well, I hope you won't regret it when the time comes. Ian thought Natsuki was worried about him failing the test. He puffed out his chest confidently. Don't worry, I'll be fine. However, he didn't know what was waiting for him in front of him. Chapter 894. Yuwa. On a sunny morning, Wu Yin was sleeping in as usual when he felt a sharp pain in his stomach. His drowsiness disappeared and he groaned in pain. Reflexively holding his stomach in pain, he groaned as his face contorted in pain. He lifted his head and looked in front of him. The next moment, in his blurred vision, he saw a petite figure standing at the end of the bed with one foot on his stomach. Seeing this scene, as long as one wasn't an idiot, one would be able to guess what the reason was coterie. Wu Yin clenched his teeth and rubbed his stomach. He wanted to cry, but no tears came out. You want to kill your own? Coterie interrupted Wu Yin with a threatening Her red eyes were filled with danger. Wu Yin quickly changed his words. You want to kill your own brother? Oomph. Coterie swung her long red hair in two ponytails. She didn't care and put more force on Wu Yin's stomach. She even twisted it. If I don't do this, who knows what kind of price I'll have to pay to wake you up. Also, you're not my real brother. You're my adopted brother. Coterie blushed as she recalled the treatment she received when she woke Wu Yin up. She continued to stomp on Wu Yan's stomach, as if venting her anger. "Stop stomping. You're going to throw up last night's dinner." Wu Yan grabbed Coteries' foot and jumped up from the bed. He complained. "What do you mean by what price? It sounds so bad. I just want you to give your dear brother a good morning kiss when he wakes up. Can you use the word give to describe it?" Coterie clenched her teeth. "Please use the word force in front of the word give. What can I do about it?" Wu Yin yelled without a hint of remorse. "Who told my sister to be so arrogant? If I don't use force, how can there be benefits?" Coterie was infuriated. She raised her foot and stomped down mercilessly. "Who told you to be arrogant? Who told you to use force? Who told you to use force?" Ouch! Wu Yin was kicked 3 times by Coterie. He was in so much pain that he couldn't even make strange sounds. It was as if someone did something to him. Coterie was too embarrassed to continue stomping on his stomach. She jumped off the bed with a blush. "I've decided. I'll use this method to wake you up," Coterie declared as if she was announcing a death sentence. "No, Coterie," Wu Yin wailed in agony. "How can you do this to your beloved brother? Don't make it sound like I'm a cruel person." Coterie went straight for Wu Yan's dirty heart. "You just want to take advantage of me. You. Wu Yin knew that she wouldn't listen to anything he says, so he snorted. "It's just a morning kiss. We've already done this and that." Coterie glared at Wu Yin, and she raised her leg like she was going to kick him. Wu Yin shut his mouth and didn't say anything else. Inside, he was laughing coldly. "The same trick won't work on Saint Seiya, my naive sister. Just you wait until I eat you alive. You'll know what's good for you." Coterie, oblivious to the fact that someone is plotting against her, pulled open the curtains in a practiced manner. Then, she removed the blanket that Wu Yin was about to use to cover her head. "Get up, you lazy vampire." Sigh. Wu Yin sighed. He gave up on the thought of going back to sleep. He slowly got up from his bed. A real vampire wouldn't wake up in the middle of the day. Outside the window, the clear blue sky stretched out endlessly. There was no darkness in the horizon. Far away, the sea at the edge of Itagami City reflected the sun's rays. For nocturnal vampires, this weather was indeed painful. Even if the other primogenitors were here, they would agree with him. Coterie knew Wu Yin well. She knew what kind of excuse Wu Yin was thinking. She said it with an expressionless face. "No, you're different from other primogenitors. You just want to sleep in." Wu Yin grinned sheepishly after Hua Li exposed his thoughts. He got out of bed and started tidying up. It's been a few days since they arrived at Itagami Island. After a few days, Wu Yin and Coterie decided to stay at Natsuki's place for a few nights. Wu Yin and Coterie stayed at Natsuki's place for a few nights. It couldn't be helped. Even though Natsuki wasn't as wary of them as she was when they first met, they were still unregistered residents. In this special demon city, it was almost impossible to move around without a proper identity. Even the demons who hadn't landed in Itagami City had the legal identity of an ordinary citizen. The 2 of them, on the other hand, were unregistered residents. If Natsuki didn't take them in, they would have to resort to some extreme measures. They would have to go to an impromptu couples hotel to find a bed. Now, with Natsuki's help, not only did they find a temporary place to stay, with Natsuki's status, it won't be hard for her to help them with the necessary paperwork. In other words, they have a place to stay in Itagami Island. A few days ago, Wu Yin participated in an attack mage test with Natsuki's recommendation. The results should be out today. Wu Yin's dungeon quest is also progressing smoothly. As for whether or not he passed the test, Wu Yin didn't doubt it. After all, he used space control magic during the test. Space control magic is considered a high-level magic in this world. He heard that Natsuki used this magic to make a name for herself. Therefore, with that kind of performance, it shouldn't be a problem for him to pass the test. Under Coterie's constant urging, Wu Yin finally tidied up his appearance and went to the kitchen to make breakfast. Coterie sat on the sofa with a satisfied look on her face as if she had achieved her goal. Looking at this scene, Wu Yin is a bit suspicious. This girl, she's so eager to wake him up, it can't be that she wants him to cook, right? After some simple yet appetizing breakfast was done, Natsuki also came out of her room like a cat that smelled blood. Surprisingly, he's a good man. After taking a bite of Wu Yan's breakfast, Natsuki gave a 100 out of 100 rating based on her personality. She happily shoveled the food into her mouth. Men like him are rare nowadays. On the side, Kotori nodded in agreement, but her words were merciless. That's the only thing worthy of praise. Wu Yan glared at Kotori before smiling at Natsuki. Eat more if you like it. We're the ones who are staying here. Sorry for the trouble. Natsuki shook her head and said to Wu Yan, well, you can stay as long as you want. I won't object. In fact, Natsuki would rather Wu Yan stay here than object to it. Not only can he cook such delicious food, he can also make tea that even Natsuki herself can't find a single flaw in it. If it weren't for the fact that their genders are different, Natsuki would have made Wu Yan her maid. Of course, what she was going to do next wasn't much different from what she had just done. Natsuki's blue eyes stared at Wu Yan with a faint smile. She quickly took out a document and threw it in front of Wu Yan. Regarding your appointment, the higher-ups have issued it. Wu Yan was startled. When he realized what was going on, his spirit shook. He picked up the document and looked at it. His expression changed, and he cried out in surprise. What? Chapter 895. What? Like a sudden clap of thunder, a thunderous exclamation reverberated throughout the hall without any warning, scaring Kotori, who was sipping her black tea, so much that she almost choked on it. Why are you reacting so strongly? Wu Yan ignored Kotori's complaint. He stared at the document in front of him. His face was even closer to the document than before. He thought he was seeing things because he was too far away. He rubbed his eyes, and when he saw the exact same document, Wu Yan was at a loss. How can this be? Apprentice attack mage? That's right, Wu Yan was appointed as a probationary attack mage, not a professional attack mage in Itagami City. In other words, the current Wu Yan is still a trainee, he can't be considered an official, and he still can't complete the quest one. Natsuki was also surprised by Wu Yan's reaction. Did you think you're an attack mage just because you passed the test? Natsuki asked in a shocked tone. Wu Yan blinked his eyes in confusion. His expression is a bit natural. Is that not the case? Natsuki raised her fan in annoyance. Which company didn't you start as an apprentice? How can you be an attack mage? This is one of the most powerful positions in Itagami City. If he wants to be an attack mage, there's no doubt about it. Wu Yan is definitely qualified. However, if one wanted to be an attack mage in Itagami Island, or in other words, an attack mage, strength alone wasn't enough. One had to know how to deal with magical disasters, reflexes, adaptability, and so on. All of these were required. Itagami Island was a special district for demons. Disasters caused by demons were commonly known as magical disasters. Normally, there was no need to mobilize an attack magician to deal with them. But when an attack magician was needed, these magical disasters would be dealt with. They won't be normal magical disasters. Therefore, the position of attack mage in Itagami Island not only required the person to be an attack mage, they also needed to have excellent handling skills. Only then would they be able to deal with magical disasters. They need to guide the security forces in Itagami City. The title of an apprentice attack mage. It only means that Wu Yan is an attack mage. It doesn't mean that Wu Yan has the ability to become an attack mage. The first mission requires Wu Yan to become an attack mage in Itagami City. Therefore, only when Wu Yan becomes an attack mage will the first mission be completed. Wu Yan tossed the document on the table with a listless face. He asked Natsuki weakly, "What do I have to do to get rid of the Wur apprentice?" Just like working in a normal company. Natsuki's lips curved upwards. A senior will guide you for a while. When you have the ability to deal with magical disasters on your own, you'll be officially appointed as an attack mage in Itagami City. Senior, Wu Yan had a weird look on his face. He looked at Natsuki with a worried look on his face. He meekly asked, "Then who is my senpai?" Senior, in terms of seniority and ability, there is no one higher than me in Itagami City. Natsuki closed her fan. Wu Yan didn't know if it was an illusion or not, but he felt like Natsuki was proud of herself. Feeling uneasy, Wu Yin laughed dryly. He hesitated for a bit before he helplessly agreed. Fine, it's better than letting someone I don't know do it. I will leave it to you then, Natsuki. It's just guiding a newbie, it's not my first time. Natsuki nodded in satisfaction. She tapped the cup in front of her with her fan. Then, make me a cup of black tea first. What? Wu Yin couldn't believe his ears. Can you repeat that? I didn't hear you. Is it not clear enough? Natsuki said, as if she was giving him advice out of kindness. As a newbie, it's necessary to serve tea to a senior who is kind enough to guide you. Right? I think so. Wu Yin looked at Natsuki blankly. But why do I feel like that's not what you meant? Well, don't mind it, don't mind it. Kotori didn't know what to say when she saw how Wu Yin still hasn't recovered from his loss of composure. It's already so obvious. Is there still a need to explain? Hurry up and do it. Kotori rolled her eyes at Wu Yin. Cheap servant. Twitching the corner of his mouth, Wu Yin finally understood the situation. Nangang Natsuyu was planning on freeloading off of him. Taking a deep breath, he suppressed the feeling of being trampled by a bunch of grass mud horses. Squinting his dead fish eyes, he started brewing the black tea. Fortunately, it was just making black tea and cooking. It was no different from what he usually did. If he had to do housework or clean up, he would definitely go crazy. All right. Natsuki tapped Wu Yan's forehead with her fan. You have to report to Saikai Academy's administration office today. Report. Wu Yan stopped what he was doing. Why? Is there even a need to ask? Natsuki raised her head. As your senior, since I'm an attack mage teacher assigned to Saikai Academy, you're naturally the same. You mean? Wu Yan was stunned. You want me to be a teacher at Saikai Academy? 12 in the afternoon. Don't be late. Natsuki closed her eyes with a smile. You will find that compared to an attack mage, being a teacher is much easier. Wu Yan's mind is in a mess. Itagami Island, Saikai Academy Middle School Division. Are you the newbie that Natsuki-senpai recommended? Walking down a corridor, a cheerful and pretty girl wearing a cheongsam with her fair thighs exposed, her hair tied up in two buns, and her bosom constantly showing off her presence walked towards the class she is in charge of. She kept looking at Wu Yin with a curious gaze, making Wu Yin feel a bit uncomfortable. Her name is Nakazaki. It's a complicated name, but she isn't as simple as she looks. Nakazaki graduated from the same university as Natsuki. Like Natsuki, she is also an attack mage assigned to Saikai Academy. Strictly speaking, she is also Wu Yan Senior. Nakazaki is also the class teacher in charge of one of Saikai Academy's middle school classes. Wu Yan doesn't know what she teaches. Wu Yan only knows that the class he is going to be teaching is under Nakazaki. Yes, after a series of unexpected events that even Wu Yin could not react to, he was now a teacher in the Kaihai Academy Junior High School. To be honest, it was not Wu Yan's first time being a student. After so many years of being ravaged by the Celestial Empire, he had done his best as a student to the point where he almost collapsed. However, this was definitely his first time being a teacher. With Wu Yan's past knowledge, he was simply overestimating himself if he wanted to be a teacher. He had even thrown away all the knowledge he had learned in the past. How could he teach others? If it wasn't for the fact that he was only teaching liberal arts and could rely on his complete memory ability to memorize and barely reach the level of teaching, Wu Yan would have lost a lot of face. Even so, he still felt a little helpless. He never thought that he would actually become a teacher one day. Fortunately, he was only teaching junior high school. Yes, Sasaki-senpai. Although he felt helpless, he still had to greet her. Currently, I'm still a newbie. I'm a trainee attack mage officer led by Natsuki-senpai. Please give me your guidance. Ma. Sasaki smiled cheerfully. Since you're a senior Yu's junior, then you are also my junior. If there is anything you do not understand, feel free to ask me. I will definitely help you. Is that so? Wu Yin smiled awkwardly. Then I'll leave it to you. Leave it to me. Sasaki Misaki patted her perky breasts, which almost attracted Wu Yan's attention. Now, I'll bring you to greet the students. Yes. Chapter 896. Itagami Island, Saikai Academy Junior High School, 3rd grade Class C. There's still some time before class starts. The 3rd grade students in junior high were around 14 or 15 years old. Students at this age were generally still at the age where they liked to play. Before class started, students generally didn't like to stay in the classroom. Even if they stayed in the classroom, they didn't want to stay by the desk. Therefore, the 3rd grade Class C had a rather lively atmosphere. The students were all whispering to each other, excitedly discussing some interesting things. For example, a certain teacher got married, a certain student fell in love, a certain friend caused trouble, a certain senior sister or senior brother made a fool of themselves. Basically, there was everything one could think of. They were all enjoying the leisure time after class. Among them, the most active one was a cute girl with red eyes. Her hair was tied up in a ponytail. She was none other than Xiao Nagisa. In just a short period of time, Xiao Nagisa had already scurried up and down the classroom countless times. As long as the students gathered together to chat, she would find an opportunity to join in the conversation and talk nonstop. She was so active that she didn't seem like a normal junior high school student, but it was hard to dislike her. After all, Xiao Nagisa was also a very cute girl. Nagisa might look like a coward because she was scared in front of Wu Yin the other day. In fact, she is the opposite. She is very lively and cheerful. She was also a member of the cheerleading team. Not only did she have excellent grades, but she was also capable of handling household affairs. She had a personality that was consistent with what she appeared to be. Although she could be particularly scary sometimes when she was angry, and there was no way she could keep a secret, it was impossible to judge her as a coward. Nagisa is also a talkative person. Once she starts talking, she can't stop talking. This also proves that she is very easy to get along with. Her personality is very likable. If she didn't have a phobia of demons, she wouldn't have acted so weak in front of Wu Yan. In front of others, Nagisa is just a cute girl who talks a lot. Perhaps. Even the students around her were no match for the aggressive Nagisa. In less than 2 minutes after she started talking, the students were already defeated. The students were already sweating profusely as they retreated in defeat. Xiao Nagisa, who still wanted to continue, was very displeased. Her eyes darted around the room. She is looking for someone to talk to. Not long after, she fixed her eyes on a certain seat in the classroom. Her eyes lit up when she saw a girl sitting there. It was a cute girl who looked similar to Xiao Nagisa. She was slightly taller than Xiao Nagisa and had shoulder-length black hair. She looked to be around 14 or 15 years old. She had a delicate face that was slightly more beautiful than Xiao Nagisa's. However, in terms of temperament, she was not as lively as Nagisa. Instead, she was more mature and steady. It was hard to tell that she was actually around the same age as Nagisa. Her name was Yakaina Kimi, and she was a new student who had just transferred to this school not long ago. On the surface, she looked like a cute girl, but in reality, Yukina's identity wasn't as simple as it looked. In this world, there was a non-public organization that specialized in dealing with magical terrorist acts. It specialized in stopping and collecting information on man-made magical disasters and magical terrorists. It was called the Lion King Organization. Yakaina, on the other hand, was an attack mage in the Lion King Organization. To be more precise, she was a sword shaman. She was very proficient in spirit vision and close combat. Her fighting ability was above ordinary demons. If she had the special weapon given to her by the Lion King, even a true ancestor would not be able to ignore her existence. Yakaina Kimi was such a person that people couldn't help but mention. She is here because of the primogeniture. Of course, she is not here because of Wu Yan. Nagisa didn't know about all this. In her eyes, Yakaina was just a new transfer student who needed to interact with her. Even though Yakaina hadn't been here for long, Nagisa's relationship with her was already pretty good. Nagisa, who liked to talk, didn't give up on harassing her good friend. "Hey, Yukina-chan, did you know?" She quickly came to Yukina's side, blinked her big eyes, and said in a very flirtatious tone, "I heard a new teacher is coming today." "New teacher?" Yakaina paused for a second, but she was still attracted by Nagisa's words. At a time like this? Yes. Nagisa excitedly put her hands on Yukina's desk, while her feet floated in the air, swaying back and forth. I heard it's a new teacher. The previous teacher was supposed to retire, but after the new teacher came, the school allowed him to retire early. It's not a bad thing, though. He's already so old, and he can't even straighten his back. He coughs in the middle of class. It's not easy for people to adjust to class, but he's interrupted. Nagisa, I'm starting to wonder if Nagisa's homework will drop because of this. If it does. Wait. Noticing that Nagisa was getting more and more excited, Yakaina hurriedly stopped her. Although she hadn't known Nagisa for a long time, Nagisa's ability to talk was well known in the class. Yakaina had heard of it before, but it was the first time she experienced it for herself, which made her feel a little embarrassed. What about the new teacher? Yakaina reminded her. She wanted Nagisa to get to the point. Oh, a new teacher. Nagisa's interest didn't diminish as she continued. I just found out too. The new teacher is a lot younger than the previous one. I heard that he's only in his 20s. He suddenly came to the school today and was recommended by a teacher in the high school. I don't know who that teacher is, but he seems very powerful. The principal agreed immediately after the recommendation. He didn't even ask about the new teacher's education. Nagisa, I find it very strange. Achan, do you find it strange too? This time, Yakaina didn't mind Nagisa's rambling. She really did find it strange. As a sword shaman, Yakaina was weak in everything except close combat and astral vision. However, her intuition was surprisingly good. Plus, she had astral vision. She would subconsciously pay attention to things that were out of the ordinary or even dangerous. It's strange, Yakaina muttered. Maybe the new teacher has a special background. Isn't it similar to Yukina-chan in this regard? Nagisa clapped her hands and smiled. Yukina-chan also transferred here out of the blue. The new teacher is the same. Maybe he's someone Yukina-chan knows. How can that be? Yakaina shook her head. She hasn't been in Itagami Island for long. Other than Nagisa, she only knows her mission target. It's impossible for the new teacher to be someone she knows. Shao Nagisa didn't seem to mind as she continued to mumble to herself. I'm looking forward to it. What's the new teacher like? Is he easy to get along with? If he's only in his 20s, he should be able to straighten his back, right? In that case, he shouldn't be coughing during class, right? No, that might not be the case. Maybe the new teacher is someone who gets sick easily. What if he's not healthy? What if he suddenly collapses in class? Also, what if he keeps coughing? Nagisa will have a headache. Nagisa-chan. Yakaina smiled bitterly. She looked at Nagisa, who was talking on her desk. She finally understood how painful it is to talk to Nagisa. Yakaina didn't hate Nagisa. Before she came to Itagami Island, she only had one friend. As for family, she's long gone. At the same time, the bell rang, signaling the start of the class. Chapter 897. Wu Yin stood at the door and looked up at the sign with the word 3C. He didn't know why, but he had a bad feeling about this. It's not that there's any danger inside. It's that he's going to see something unexpected. Even though Wu Yan's intuition isn't very good, it's very useful in certain situations. He stared at the sign with an uncertain expression. He chose to trust his intuition. Standing at the doorway, Wu Yin racked his brain trying to think of all the possibilities. However, it's a futile effort. He bitterly smiled to himself. If he knew this would happen, he would have watched the new anime a few more times. Then he wouldn't be unable to piece together the plot. The only things he could think of were fragmented fragments. It's not useful at all. Sasaki Misaki didn't know that Wu Yin was thinking about so many things in such a short time. She pushed open the door of the classroom and walked in with a swagger. Finally, she managed to pull Wu Yan's attention back to the present situation. Unlike the lively atmosphere after class, all the students were sitting properly in their seats. When the door was pushed open, everyone turned to look at Sasaki Misaki. They seemed to be well-behaved. There weren't any troublemakers around. Only a portion of the students vaguely noticed that there was someone standing at the door and immediately looked over curiously. At this time, Misaki Sasazaki also stood on the podium and waved at the students with a smile. She looked like a naughty big sister and didn't look like a teacher at all. Today, I'm going to introduce a new teacher to everyone. As expected, it's a new teacher. Shao Nagisa tilted her head in her seat. She laughed, but soon she couldn't laugh anymore. Perhaps it was because they had all received the news that a new teacher would be coming, but no one in the classroom showed any signs of surprise. Instead, they all cast their gazes towards the entrance of the classroom, their eyes filled with anticipation. For normal students, a new teacher or a new transfer student would arouse their curiosity. However, it was easy to arouse their curiosity. The men were looking forward to a beautiful big sister, while the women were looking forward to a handsome big brother. In some ways, their thoughts were very simple, including Nagisa, because she was looking forward to seeing what the new teacher would be like, but now she was completely stunned. She only had 2 words in her mind when she saw the figure walking in. How is this possible? The students curiously looked at the young teacher who walked into the classroom and began to whisper to each other. What? It's a male teacher. This was a disappointed male student. A male teacher, he doesn't look that good, but his eyes are very pretty. This was a female student who was interested. Under everyone's gaze, Wu Yin slowly walked up to the podium and he looked at the students. When he saw Nagisa staring at him in a daze, his heart skipped a beat and he almost face-bombed. His premonition had come true. She wouldn't scream in class, would she? Wu Yin shook his head and laughed. He walked to Misaki Sasasaki. He said loudly, "Hello everyone, my name is Wu Yin. I will be teaching liberal arts for a period of time. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me. Whether it is in class or after class, I will answer them." At this point, Wu Yan's serious face crumbled. He touched his nose embarrassedly. "But if it's about homework, forget it. Even if you ask me, I might not know." Hearing this, all the students present were stunned. Not to mention the students. Even Sasasaki Misaki was stunned. She didn't know what to say to Wu Yin, who didn't feel the slightest bit embarrassed when he said that. "You are a teacher." The entire classroom was silent for a moment. Then, ha ha ha, loud laughter began to reverberate throughout the entire classroom, showing the mood of the owner of the classroom. "Teacher, are you kidding me?" "I'm not kidding. Back in the day, my grades were terrible. I was scolded by the class teacher many times." "Ha! Then how did you become a teacher?" "Well, I was forced, huh?" Unlike the usual solemn class, the entire class burst into laughter. Nagisa and Yakaina couldn't help but laugh as well. Their laughter was filled with friendliness. That nonsensical opening made the students feel closer to Wu Yin. They didn't feel as reserved as they did at the beginning. One by one, the students started to raise their hands in response to Wu Yan's words. "Teacher, I have a question for you." "Me too. Me too. Teacher, here." I say one by one. Wu Yin smiled bitterly. "Remember, don't ask about homework." "Ha, teacher, how old are you this year?" 26, almost 27. You're 26? You should be younger. Are you taking care of yourself? Teach us." "I'm not. I was born this way. If you have a good attitude, you won't age so easily." "Well, you're all so lively. Don't worry, you won't die so early. We won't die." "Ha, teacher, teach us how to take care of ourselves." I said I'm not taking care of myself. "Hey, teacher, let's be friends. Don't say anything immoral." "Wah, teacher, you're so cute." "Over there. Don't tease the teacher." "Ha ha." All of a sudden, the sound of laughter spread throughout the 3rd grade floor of Kaihai Academy, along with the interaction between the teacher and the interested students. It even spread to the ears of the other classes, causing many people to be surprised as to why they were laughing so happily. At the same time, they couldn't help but become restless, wanting to know the truth of the matter. Sasasaki looked at Wu Yin, who was joking with the students. Sasasaki glanced at her students and then looked at Wu Yin. She smiled. "Era, he's more interesting than I thought. This junior." Okay. Wu Yin stopped the students from asking more and more questions. He rolled his eyes. "If you want to chat, let's wait until after class. If you continue, Sasasaki teacher will be angry, mama. Sasasaki giggled. She didn't seem angry at all. It's good to be like this once in a while. At the same time, Yakaina looked at the lively classroom. She looked at Wu Yin in surprise. Yakaina has never seen such an atmosphere in her life. Now that she's experiencing it herself, she felt strange, but she didn't hate him. That sensei seems quite interesting. Yakaina smiled after giving the same comment as Sasasaki Hajime. At this moment, Yakaina noticed Nagisa, who was sitting not far from her. Nagisa was hesitant, and she paused for a second. Nagisa is a very lively girl. Yukina's impression of her was that she liked this kind of lively atmosphere. With her personality, she should be interacting with the interesting teacher like the other students. She should be the most enthusiastic one. However, Nagisa's current behavior was completely different from the one Yakaina knew. Yakaina noticed the trace of fear in Nagisa's beautiful eyes. Yakaina was puzzled, but at the same time, she began to ponder. Does Nagisa know that teacher? And she doesn't have a good impression of him? But this teacher seems easy to get along with. Is there a secret behind this? Yakaina didn't know that Nagisa's behavior was already very good. Nagisa has a phobia of demons, so she can't get along with any demons. If it were another demon, she would scream and run out of the classroom like Wu Yin predicted. Nagisa's eyes still had traces of fear, but they weren't as frightened as before. Wu Yan's behavior made Nagisa's curiosity slowly overtake her fear. Chapter 898. On the stage, Wu Yan, who has been paying attention to Nagisa, saw her reaction. He appeared to be interacting with the students normally, but inside, he was feeling helpless. Even though he had mastered all the tactics in the 103,000 books of witchcraft, he still couldn't think of a solution to this phobia of demons, which was similar to male phobia. Although Xiao Nagisa was proficient in all the tactics in the 103,000 books of witchcraft, he still couldn't think of a solution to this phobia of demons. In the final analysis, this phobia of demons was caused by the owner's mental state. Unless Xiao Nagisa thought it through, nobody could solve this phobia of demons. In other words, Nagisa must have been traumatized by something related to the Nephilim in the past. That's why she developed this phobia of the Nephilim. Wu Yan has only known Nagisa for a few days. Logically speaking, there's no reason for him to cure her phobia of the Nephilim. There's no reason for her to accept him either. Nagisa rejected him because of this reason, but he was only slightly hurt. He didn't mind it too much. After all, 90% of guys would be upset if a cute girl hates them. But now, she's one of the students he's responsible for. For some reason, his cheap sister seems to care a lot about Nagisa. When he summoned his familiar, she even took the initiative to send Nagisa home. They seem to be getting along well. Nagisa. She's Kotori's only friend of the same age in Itagami Island. Even if they aren't close, at least they can get along peacefully, right? Thinking up to this point, Wu Yan glanced at Nagisa, who didn't even dare to look at him. An idea popped up in his mind. Oh, right. In front of the whole class, Wu Yan suddenly said something. I didn't come to Kaihai Academy until today, so I'm not familiar with this school and everything here. Usually, teaching is more or less a bit difficult, so I was wondering if I should find someone to act as my assistant and help me out. It's similar to a course representative. Hearing this, Misaki Sasasaki also felt that it was very reasonable and nodded. The students also had no objections and raised their hands in excitement. Sensei, let me do it. Let me do it. Let me do it. Sensei, pick me. No, it's me. Oh. Sasasaki was surprised to see the whole class raising their hands. It was as if she didn't know her students until today. He's so popular. Teacher Wu Yan. It was no wonder that Misaki Sasasaki was so surprised. Her students were not lifeless and were even a little lively. However, such a lively scene was very rare. It had to be said that Wu Yan's previous performance was very impressive. It really made these young students have a good impression of him. After all, no matter which student it was impossible to like a teacher who was difficult to get along with. Wu Yan seemed to be shocked as well. He didn't expect himself to be so charming. He didn't even think about it, and he was slightly pleased with himself. However, he also had other plans. I am very happy that so many people are willing to help me. However, this is difficult. It is difficult to choose. He acted as if he was in a difficult situation. His wine-red eyes turned, and he looked at Xiao Nagisa. He chuckled. That student over there, why aren't you raising your hand? Wu Yan's speech caused the entire class to look at the stunned Nagisa. They were all shocked and bewildered at the same time. Yeah, why isn't Akatsuki-san raising her hand? That's impossible. Akatsuki-san, she is Akatsuki-san. She is usually the most enthusiastic one at this time. Yeah, that's strange. Nagisa-chan. Yakina was also surprised. What's going on? For some reason, Nagisa was the center of attention in the class. She didn't know how to react, but when she did, she shrunk her neck in embarrassment and hurriedly shook her head. No, it's not. Xiao Nagisa stuttered. She didn't know what to say. She didn't know how to explain. She couldn't tell everyone that she has a phobia of demons, and that the popular teacher in front of her is actually a demon that hasn't appeared yet. Xiao Nagisa didn't want to reveal that she has a phobia of demons, let alone the fact that her classmates might not believe her. Even though she was afraid of Wu Yan, she couldn't help but complain in her heart. Why did he have to drag her down with him? Akatsuki-san. Wu Yan tilted his head and narrowed his eyes with a smile. How about you be my class representative? Huh? Xiao Nagisa was stunned again. She exclaimed when she realized what was going on. What's wrong? Wu Yan had expected this reaction, but he still forced a smile. You don't want to? All of the students looked at one another in bewilderment. They were all confused by Xiao Nagisa's intense reaction. Why was the cheerful, easygoing, and warm-hearted Akatsuki acting so strange today? Sensing the strange gazes from the surrounding students, Xiao Nagisa started to panic. No, it's not like that. Xiao Nagisa was anxious because she didn't know how to explain herself. Wu Yan laughed and said to Xiao Nagisa, how about this? If you're willing to help me and be my class representative, I'll give you something good. Something good? The student's attention was drawn. Something good? Xiao Nagisa was stunned. Wu Yan smiled warmly at her. Out of nowhere, he pulled out a big box. Inside the box, there are some piping hot pastries. In the next moment, the aroma of the pastries began to reverberate throughout the entire classroom at an uncontrollable speed. It didn't take long for it to fill every corner of the classroom. When everyone smelled the rich aroma that made them salivate, their spirits were shaken and their eyes lit up. Don't look at me like that. I'm actually very good at cooking. Wu Yan smirked when he saw everyone's reaction. If you're willing to help me, I'll treat you to some. It's really good. Listening to Wu Yan's words and actions that are akin to teasing a child, the crowd was speechless. He's not a kid. Why would he bribe me with food? Yakina shook her head with a smile, but her eyes didn't move away from the pastries. The smell was too tempting. Xiao Nagisa's heart wavered as she stared at the fragrant pastries. Her sweet and adorable face was extremely conflicted. She wasn't a foodie, but she still liked good food. She was just a little girl. However, the other party was also a demon. If she agreed, wouldn't she have to deal with him often in the future? How is that possible? Xiao Nagisa's eyes never left the pastries. The delicious aroma and her curiosity towards Wu Yan overcame her fear. She nodded. Okay. Wu Yan smiled. He smiled happily. The rest of the students weren't happy. Teacher, you're biased. Yeah, who wants some too? You guys. Wu Yan's smile turned bitter. Okay, I still have a lot. The group of students broke into smiles and cheered. Thank you, teacher. Teacher, you're a good person. Don't give me a card. After that, the delicious pastries were distributed to the students one by one. Even Sasasaki Misaki, who was watching from the side, was given some and started eating. Thus, some absurd scenes appeared in the classroom. After all, this is a school, a classroom. What kind of teacher would give food to the students during class? Admittedly, Wu Yan's delicious pastries won the hearts of the students. Yakina took a bite and let out a satisfied moan. She looked at the pastries in a different light. It's delicious. It's true. Sasasaki and the other students' eyes lit up. It's delicious. Nagisa chewed her desserts faster. At the same time, she stuck a peek at Wu Yin, who was distributing the desserts. Curiosity was the only thing left in her eyes. Chapter 899. Itagami Island, Saikai Academy, Middle School Division, Teacher's Office. Wu Yin shook his head and chuckled when he saw Yakaina and Nagisa hiding behind her awkwardly. What are you doing? Yakaina glanced at Nagisa on reflex when she heard Wu Yan's question. Nagisa immediately shook her head at Yakaina, as if to say she won't come out. Yakaina had no choice but to explain herself. Wu Yin sensei. Yakaina averted her eyes and carefully said to Wu Yin, Nagisa-chan seems to be afraid of you, so she doesn't dare to be alone with you. Wu Yin was taken aback. He glanced at Nagisa, who was looking at him curiously but still hiding behind Yakaina. He sighed. Well, you're right. Letting Akatsuki bring me around Saikai Academy is a bit too much for her. That. Nagisa also felt that her actions were a little hurtful. She blushed and murmured, I'm sorry. Oh. Wu Yin raised an eyebrow and smiled. You're finally willing to talk to me. This is already a huge improvement. Nagisa blushed even harder. She was even more embarrassed now, although it was because she had a phobia of demons that she behaved like this. However, it was her fault for being so rude. Not only did Wu Yin not get angry, he even defended her. This made her feel bad. Of course, she was also happy. Ever since she developed her fear of demons, Nagisa couldn't even bear to look at the face of a demon, let alone talk to one. She hasn't interacted with demons for a few years now. Now, she can talk to her sensei, who is a demon. Just like Wu Yin said, this is a huge improvement. Of course, at the end of the day, it's because of Wu Yan's harmless appearance. His kind behavior and the delicious pastries he had given her had left a good impression on Xiao Nagisa, and the curious, cheerful, and lively girl had changed her opinion of him. That was why she was able to improve so much. If it were another demon, Xiao Nagisa wouldn't be able to resist him. Nagisa would probably still be afraid. After all, even Wu Yin, who left a good impression on her, she couldn't be completely unafraid of him, let alone other demons. Yakaina looked at Wu Yin and then at Nagisa. Recalling the conversation between the two of them, she asked, Could it be? You two already know each other? Wu Yin blinked and shrugged. Well, we kind of know each other. Although the process was quite frustrating. Wu Yin stood up and walked out of the office. He waved at Yakaina and Nagisa. All right, come with me to the school. I'm curious about what this school has. Like a haunted lab or a dissecting course on beastmen. There's no such thing. Yakaina and Nagisa were frightened by Wu Yan's words. Yakaina and Nagisa screamed in unison. Wu Yan laughed. Oh. Nagisa finally walked out from behind Yakaina. She stuck her tongue out at Wu Yan's back. What a bad teacher. Yakaina laughed and shook her head, then pulled Nagisa's hand over. Let's go. I feel like Wu Yin, sensei will cause trouble if we lose him. Indeed, he is indeed a teacher that can't be trusted. Xiao Nagisa nodded as if she was telling the truth. He's interesting, he speaks humorously, he's gentle, he doesn't cough in class, he doesn't bend his back, and he knows how to cook. He's a very nice person. Yakaina was speechless. She glared at Nagisa. If that teacher is so nice, then why are you so afraid of him? There are all kinds of reasons. Nagisa waved her hand and smiled awkwardly. She saw that Yakaina wanted to get to the bottom of this, so she quickly pushed her out of the office. All right, let's go. I know, don't push me. Thus, a vampire, a sword sorcerer, and a young girl who had a phobia of demons started to wander around Kaihai Academy, forming a marvelous combination. Saikai Academy is a very normal school, at least it looks that way on the surface. Here, humans are the only ones to learn, unlike the demons in Itagami Island. Along the way, Wu Yin used the system to scan his surroundings. He thought he could find something. He found quite a bit, but most of it was within his expectations. 99% of the students here are normal. Their levels fluctuated between 10 and 10, but most of them are level 0. The ones with levels are those who do sports or join clubs. They're pretty good fighters, just like Chuju, who gained a certain level of strength for being a normal human. This isn't the first time Wu Yin sighed. As expected of a special demon city, even normal humans have a certain level of combat prowess. Although this level of combat prowess is nothing in the eyes of the demons, it doesn't diminish the strength of the humans in Itagami City. Being able to live together with demons is something to be proud of. Other than that, we can also notice that a small number of people in Saikai Academy are above Tier 5. There are even a few Tier 7 existences. This group of people should have a certain level of attack mage skills, have practiced some kind of magic skill, or are natural overachievers. It couldn't be ruled out that they were attack mages hidden in the school, or attack mage officers assigned to Saikai Academy. In short, there are no demons in Saikai Academy, but it's a place full of crouching tigers and hidden dragons. However, Wu Yin wasn't surprised. Even the Tier 9 Natsuki is a teacher here. It's not hard to guess that there are some special people studying here. What surprised Wu Yin was that Yakaina Kimi isn't a normal student either. Yakaina Kimi, level 69, it was different from the thin and weak figure on the surface. In this thin and weak figure, there was actually a strength as high as the peak of the 7th order. Yakaina doesn't look like a demon, and normal students can't have this kind of strength. So we can guess that Yakaina Kimi is also an attack mage, and her background isn't small either. One had to know that when Natsuki took him to participate in the test, he saw many other offensive mages. However, those offensive mages were all around the 6th step. Some of the 7th step ones were in their 70s or 80s. They couldn't compare to Yakaina, a 14-year-old girl who was already at the peak of the 7th step. Although peak Tier 7 strength is nothing in Wu Yan's eyes. What Wu Yan didn't know is that in the guitar case on Yukina's back, there's a weapon that even he can't ignore. With that weapon, not to mention a peak of the 7th rank, even a peak of the 8th rank, or even a peak of the 9th rank would be killed by Yakaina if they weren't careful. Soon, the three of them finished touring the junior high school building. Then, the three of them came to the senior high school building. High school section, Nagisa said excitedly. Nagisa, I rarely come to the high school section. Me too. Yukina's expression changed as she said, but senior should be here, right? Yeah. Nagisa nodded. Koji-kun is here. Koji-kun. Wu Yan paused and turned to look at Nagisa. Koji-kun, is he Akatsuki Koju? Nagisa was startled by Wu Yan's sudden question. She shrunk back. Yes, Koju-kun. He's my brother. Wu Yan blanked out for a moment before he cried out in surprise. You're Akatsuki Koju's sister? Yeah. Nagisa looked at Wu Yan with a bewildered look. Do you know Koji-kun, teacher? Before Wu Yan could answer, another surprised voice came from behind them. Nagisa? Yakaina? Chapter 900. Akatsuki Koju. This isn't the first time Wu Yan heard this name. Even if he's not familiar with the plot, to the point where he's so unfamiliar with the plot that he can't even remember the main character's name, even if he doesn't remember his face. Also, while staying at Natsuki's place, Wu Yan heard her complain about having a troublesome student who could wipe the entire Saikai Academy off the map if he wasn't careful. That student is Akatsuki Koju. Of course, not many people in this world know the name Akatsuki Koju. However, when it comes to Akatsuki Koju's identity, everyone knows who he is. Only one of the 4 true ancestors existed in the legends. It was the 4th true ancestor, whose existence had only been confirmed recently. The 4th primogenitor, the strongest vampire in the world. Even though he's a primogenitor, he's much stronger than the other 3 primogenitors. He controls 12 disaster-level familiars. Any one of them has the power to destroy Itagami City. He's the most uncontrollable variable in the city. Because of this, Natsuki paid special attention to Akatsuki Koju. Not a day goes by when she doesn't talk about him. After all, Akatsuki Koju is an atomic bomb that could explode at any time. Once the city is gone, Natsuki has to pay attention to him. She also has a headache. Of course, Natsuki's headache has increased from 1 to 2 primogenitors. They're both super powerful vampires. They both have familiars that can destroy Itagami City, and they're both unclassified demons. Wu Yin and Akatsuki Koju are very similar. Natsuki doesn't even know that Wu Yin is also a primogenitor. The difference is that, as a primogenitor, Wu Yin has already shown his potential. Even though he's still not as strong as the other 3 primogenitors who have lived for God knows how long. But he definitely won't lose to anyone below primogenitor. This doesn't even include Ruby Mode and his familiars. In terms of familiars, Wu Yin only has 2, but he won't lose to anyone in terms of familiars, including the true ancestor. As for Koju, he was known as the world's strongest vampire ancestor, but in fact, he wasn't completely. Vampires were powerful because of their familiars. The same was true for the primogenitors, and even more so for the legendary 4th primogenitor. The 12 familiars that could rival calamity beasts were definitely at the pinnacle of their kind. The 4th true ancestor was the strongest in the world. But now, none of Xiao Guqing's familiars were under his control, and none of them were willing to listen to his orders. As the 4th ancestor's familiars, they hadn't fully acknowledged Xiao Guqing. If it wasn't for the fact that he'd gained control of one of the familiars a few days ago, Xiao Guqing wouldn't even be able to defeat an ordinary vampire. Wu Yin is qualified to be a true ancestor. Akatsuki Koju, on the other hand, is a half-baked true ancestor. This could be seen from the feedback from the system. Koju. What appeared in front of him was a boy wearing a high school uniform from Saihai Academy. He was wearing a white hooded jacket, and the hair in front of his forehead was the color of a wolf's body hair. It was slightly thin, and his handsome face was filled with laziness as if he was born like this. His eyes were squinting as if he was sleepy. He was about 16 or 17 years old, and there was nothing special about him. He was a high school student that could be seen everywhere. His eyes widened in surprise, as if he was surprised to see Nagisa, Yakaina, and Yakaina here. He was even more surprised to see a boy with them. Wu Yin froze when he heard Koju's feedback. This is the first time he's seen someone's level displayed in. What's going on? System, what's with this message? Under Wu Yan's questioning, the system's voice echoed in his mind. User, the system's perception of the target's level is very unstable. It is unable to accurately assess the target's level. The system paused for a moment before continuing. According to the system's analysis, the target has 12 powerful familiars hidden within him, but they are not under the control of the host. If the host can further control these familiars, the target's level will gradually increase. The system cannot determine whether the target has familiars under his control, nor can it determine the number of familiars under his control. Therefore, it cannot determine the target's strength. Wu Yin understood what was going on. To put it simply, Koju was still an incomplete primogenitor. The familiars in his body weren't under his control, and each time he gained control of a familiar, his power would greatly increase. When that time came, his level would also greatly increase. In other words, Koju's level would increase as he gained control of the familiars in his body until he gained full control of all 12 familiars. Right now, Koju only had control of one familiar. He had many other disobedient familiars. The system could not determine whether these disobedient familiars were part of Koju's strength or not. Therefore, it could not determine his true level. Even the mysterious system could not do anything to the 4th true ancestor due to his half-baked skills. Wu Yin was speechless. Nagisa and Yakaina also noticed Koju. It's Guqing Kuin. Xiao Nagisa looked at her brother and waved at him happily. Kojo Kuin, good morning. Oh, good morning, Koju instinctively replied, but quickly reacted and complained loudly. Now isn't the time to say good morning, is it? Why are you here? This is the high school division. Koju ran over and looked at Wu Yin in confusion. You are? Senpai. Yakaina walked up to Koju and introduced him. He's a new teacher in our class. We're here to show him around the school. I see. Koju nodded in realization. He turned to look at Wu Yin and met eyes with Wu Yin, who has been quietly observing him. Time seemed to have stopped as their gazes met. It was as if only the two of them were left in the world. Everything around them seemed to have disappeared. The two of them just stood there quietly, looking at each other. They had actually fallen into an unbelievable state. Koju had a strange feeling as he looked at the figure in front of him. This feeling was similar to when he was in a basketball game. Excitement, fear, joy, and a heavy heart. It's a combination of excitement and danger. It's an indescribable feeling of comfort and nervousness. Inside Koju's body, the blood of a true ancestor flowed faster. His nerves became exceptionally sharp. The terrifying familiars that resided in Koju's blood didn't come out one by one. Instead, they all came out at the same time. That's because the familiars sensed a powerful enemy. Moreover, this powerful enemy was nearby. Koju's heart throbbed more and more intensely as time passed. He could finally sense the strange feeling in his heart. It was the feeling of sensing that a powerful comrade was approaching. The ancestor blood in his body is telling him that there's another existence of the same level in front of him. The strong feeling awakened the familiars. Koju was caught off guard by the sudden ruckus. It was already too late by the time he realized what was going on. Stop, stop. Koju's body suddenly trembled. His expression became ferocious as his pupils slowly turned red. His fangs slowly protruded out, and a terrifying demonic power erupted from his body. Ah! Koju! He screamed in pain. Chapter 901. Ah! Without any warning, Koju let out a painful roar. His whole body seemed to be possessed by something. Even his muscles were faintly twitching. His face was distorted and filled with obvious discomfort. A surge of mana that made Wu Yan's pupils shrink suddenly surged out of Koju's body like a tidal wave. It exploded in all directions, and in just a short time, the mana on his body had expanded to the point where it could blow up the surrounding walls and windows. Wu Yan has never seen such a powerful mana on anyone other than himself. Wu Yan cursed when he saw the magic power spreading in all directions. The glass and walls around him started cracking. He immediately made his move. Pong! Following a firecracker-like sound, Wu Yan's mana was no weaker than Koju's. He moved his feet, and a raindrop of light rippled from his body. Then, Wu Yan, Koju, Yakaina, and Xiao Nagisa all disappeared from the corridor. All that was left at the scene was a half-cracked corridor that hadn't collapsed in time and shattered glass all over the floor. It was as if a small bomb had just been detonated here. It was an indescribable mess. At the same time, in Saikai Academy, in a classroom, a hedgehog-headed boy with headphones was blasted by the noise from his own headphones. He pulled them out of his ears in discomfort. His face was pale, and he couldn't stop panting. Just now, that was Gu Cheng. He glanced at the direction of the cracked corridor and glanced at the students in the classroom. Then, he left his seat as if nothing had happened and rushed towards the corridor. That guy. Could it be that he's met with some trouble again? Saikai Academy High School, a luxurious office on the top floor. Sitting in front of a spacious desk. Natsuki was enjoying a cup of Wu Yan's black tea she brought from home. She was enjoying a rare moment of leisure. When Koju's mana went berserk, Nayu abruptly stopped what she was doing and a grave expression appeared in her deep blue eyes. Natsuki stood up. She leaned to the side. A similar flash of light rippled from her petite body. He disappeared from the office in an instant, and when he reappeared, he was already in the hallway where Koju's mana had gone berserk. Two different types of magic? He looked around at the messy surroundings. Nayu narrowed her eyes and then closed them. Looks like Wu Yan's meeting with Koju is the cause of all this trouble. Natsuki sighed as she analyzed the situation. Really, troublesome juniors and troublesome students. Both of them are so troublesome. I hope they can solve it themselves. After saying that, Natsuki teleported again and returned to her office. She started to leisurely drink some tea. In Kaihai Academy, almost everyone who sensed the abnormal magic power walked around this corridor until they couldn't find anything or were afraid of being discovered by others. Only then did they reluctantly return to their original positions. 15 minutes later, the situation here was discovered by the ordinary students, who reported it to the school teachers. The entire Saikai Academy fell into a small commotion. In the end, the cracked corridor was covered up with the unconvincing excuse of being in disrepair. Itagami Island, the area where Wu Yin summoned his familiar. A flash of light suddenly appeared in the middle of the junkyard. Then, four figures of different sizes appeared out of thin air. As soon as they appeared, one of the figures burst out with a violent gust of wind mixed with rich magic power, stirring up the deathly silent scene into a mess. Ah! Koju's voice was filled with uncontrollable pain. It made the hearts of those who heard it ache, but there was nothing they could do. He was already doing his best, but he still couldn't stop the vassal beasts inside his body from causing a ruckus. For the current Koju, controlling these familiars is as difficult as ascending to the heavens. It's impossible. As a primogenitor, he's not a primogenitor. He can force the familiars in his body to calm down, but when he's attacked by other familiars or suffers serious injuries, they'll instinctively protect him even though they can't be controlled. Since Koju can't control them, the method they use to protect him is too harsh. They'll just cause a ruckus and destroy everything around them. That way, the threat will disappear. However, this time is different. The familiars are causing a ruckus because they ran into a powerful enemy they haven't seen in a long time, one that isn't weaker than them. Others might not know what kind of existence Wu Yin is, but the familiars of a primogenitor are the first to realize that Wu Yin is a primogenitor. Thus, the familiars that have been sleeping in Koju's body for a long time got excited and started a rebellion. It's rare for a primogenitor of the same level to appear. The Calamity's avatars wanted to come out and fight. They wanted to vent their frustrations after being asleep for so long. Thus, Koju was dragged into this mess by a group of willful familiars. Ah! Along with the roar, a wild storm of mana swept out and filled every corner of the battlefield. Yakaina, who was caught off guard, finally realized what was going on. Senpai. Yakaina was shocked to see Koju's mana go berserk. What's going on? Ha! Yakaina didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I think it's because of me. Teacher. Yakaina hurriedly turned to Wu Yin and saw Nagisa, who had fainted in his arms. Her expression changed. Nagisa-chan. Nagisa. Koju looked at Nagisa with difficulty. When he saw her faint, he didn't panic. Instead, he let out a sigh of relief. Koju knew that his sister was afraid of demons. That's why he hid his identity as the fourth primogenitor. Only a few people knew about it. If his sister knew that her brother was a demon, the consequences would be, don't worry. Wu Yin seemed to know what the two girls were thinking. He placed Nagisa in Yukina's arms. Akatsuki-san is just under hypnosis. It's nothing serious. Wu Yin smiled at Koju and Yakaina. After all, I'm sure you guys would have a headache if she were to see this, right? Koju looked at Wu Yin gratefully, but he quickly bent over in pain. On the other hand, Yakaina looked at Wu Yin with a serious expression. This teacher actually knows how to teleport magic, and it's so advanced that he was able to teleport the berserk Koju, himself, and Nagisa together. Looking at the scene, it seems to be quite a distance away from Saihai Academy. It seems like he's the reason why Akatsuki went berserk. The new teacher in front of him was definitely not an ordinary person. Who is he? Yakaina became cautious, but she didn't question him. The most important thing right now is to stop Koju from going berserk. Otherwise, Itagami Island will be in danger. Fortunately, her weapon came in handy in this situation. Just as this thought appeared in his mind, Koju's condition changed again. No, go back. Koju shouted himself hoarse, but it was clearly useless. Under everyone's gaze, Koju's mana turned into golden lightning. A blood-colored mist floated out of his body. Then, a giant lion wearing golden armor and golden lightning appeared in the air. Roar! The golden lion roared from within the lightning. Jizui Yukina's pupil shrank as she said in a serious tone, word by word. Fourth primogenitor's fifth familiar, Lion's Gold. Chapter 902. Roar. Koju's eyes were uncontrollably dyed red, and his canine-like teeth protruded from his tightly clenched jaws. His body glowed red as if his skin was being torn apart. However, it wasn't blood. It was the sign of vassal beasts being released. Beep, beep, beep. A dazzling golden-yellow lightning glow swelled, causing the atmosphere to become scorching hot. That glaring light covered the entire place, accompanied by a violent impact, as well as the explosive sound produced by the impact. The concentrated magic energy turned into a destructive thunderstorm. The uncontrollable lightning swept across the ground, and the shockwave turned into a violent storm. Koju's body was completely engulfed by the golden light, and dense thunderbolts were released indiscriminately in the surroundings. It was as if a colorless thundercloud had appeared out of nowhere. Itagami Island shook, as if there was an earthquake. The surrounding ocean also became tsunami-like. Blood, lightning, and indescribable heat and shockwaves followed. The golden lightning lion was like the largest airship, its entire body glowing with golden light. Roar like thunder. The atmosphere shook. Roar! The scattered electric currents spread out in all directions, and the surrounding rocks and rubbish were instantly sent flying. The ground emitted a kacha-kacha sound as it cracked open bit by bit. A real earthquake was nothing more than this. This was the power of the world's strongest vampire, the fourth primogenitor's familiar. Even if Koju wasn't a primogenitor yet, the Lion's Gold's power couldn't be fully unleashed. However, the destructive power it displayed was enough to be called a primogenitor's familiar. It wasn't a match for a primogenitor's familiar. If Koju fully matured into the fourth primogenitor, it wasn't hard to imagine. Why was the fourth primogenitor the strongest in the world? Lion's Gold. Yakaina was a bit confused as she shook her head helplessly. Why did the Lion's Gold go berserk? Wasn't it already under Senior's control? That's right, the Lion's Gold. It was the only familiar Koju could control. Because of this, that's why it could show itself. The other familiars, because they weren't under Koju's control, they could only use Koju's body to release a portion of their power. However, they couldn't fully release their power. Only the Lion's Gold, which was under Koju's control, could use its host's mana to fully show itself. Wu Yan's wine-red eyes turned serious as he looked at the majestic lion roaring at the sky. He could clearly sense that the Lion's Gold's destructive power was at the peak of the 9th stage. In other words, the Lion's Gold before him could be considered a peak of the 9th stage's attack. Just the destructive power alone didn't mean that Koju was a powerhouse at the peak of the 9th step. Destructive power was destructive power, and strength was strength. The Lion's Gold could only be used as an all-out attack of a peak 9th-step powerhouse. In terms of fighting power, an initial 9th-step powerhouse wouldn't be in any danger. After all, as long as it didn't get hit, it was fine. This also means that Wu Yan can't afford to get hit by Lion's Gold. If he gets hit by the full power of a peak Tier 9 fighter, he would be reduced to ashes. However, Wu Yan wasn't afraid at all. Instead, he was excited. As expected of the vassal beast of the world's strongest vampire, Wu Yan licked his lips in a bloodthirsty manner. He felt like he was about to explode with pride. One day, I will take the title of the world's strongest vampire. Amidst his emotional turmoil, Wu Yan took a deep breath and walked towards the terrifying lightning lion. Sensei, Yakaina exclaimed. It's dangerous here, let me. Don't worry. With his back facing Yakaina, Wu Yan's firm and resolute tone entered Yukina's ears. It's just an incomplete primogenitor's familiar. No matter how destructive it is, it can't hurt me. Ma, Sensei. Yakaina flinched. She was stunned by Wu Yan's bold words. Roar. Maybe it heard Wu Yan's disdainful words. Lion's Gold roared in anger. It stomped on the air, and its huge body turned into a deadly lightning bolt as it charged towards Wu Yan, who was on the ground. It shot out explosively. Shit! Yakaina gritted her teeth. Her face was pale. If the Lion's Gold landed on the ground, Even if Itagami Island didn't sink, it would turn into an abandoned island. The ripples of magic power and lightning hit Wu Yan. Looking at the lion's gold charging towards him, Wu Yan's expression didn't change at all. However, his eyes flashed with a cold glint. If you were a complete primogenitor, I would have no choice but to release my familiar. Wu Yan closed his eyes, ignoring Yakina, who was stunned by his words. But it's just an incomplete primogenitor. As soon as he finished speaking, bang! White flames burst out from Wu Yan's body, bursting out from his body. The white flame didn't have the slightest temperature, but as it burned, the space around it started to distort. At the same time, a surge of mana and a sharp sonic boom could be heard. He gently raised his hand, and all the white flames on his body flowed into his hand, condensing into a ball. This level, Wu Yan mumbled as he looked at the lion's gold. That's enough. With a flash of golden light in his eyes, he waved his hand, and the white flame turned into a small flame beam. With a trail of white flames, it silently flew past the lightning lion and collided head-on with a lightning lion that couldn't even compare to him. Bang! The flames streaked across the sky like a meteor, distorting the space around it. The white flame pierced the lion's gold between its eyebrows like a needle. Following that, an unbelievable scene appeared. Roar! The lion's gold abruptly stopped its dive and roared in pain. Between its brows, a white flame slowly burned, and in the blink of an eye, the flame enveloped the entire lion's gold body. The lightning disappeared, and the golden light dimmed. The golden thunder lion was dyed white, and the golden lightning on its body was replaced by a burning white flame. Under the slow burning of the flame, the lion's gold roared and slowly disintegrated the lion's gold bit by bit. Like a cage trapping a lion, the lion's gold turned into little sparks and gradually dissipated. No matter how hard it struggled, it was of no use. In the end, it completely disappeared along with the white flames. The entire scene returned to silence. Only the lion's roar that was still reverberating in the air was still lingering in the air, indicating what had just happened. Ha! Ha! Koju retracted all of his mana and laid on the ground, panting. He couldn't get up anymore. The moment the lion's gold disappeared, the other familiars in Koju's body retreated one by one as if they had seen something terrifying. Despite their reluctance, they understood that they were no match for this powerful enemy in their incomplete form. They couldn't even defeat the lion's gold when it was fully released, let alone the familiars who could only release a portion of its power. Calm down. Koju looked at his hand in relief. Then, he looked at Wu Yan in disbelief. My familiars, they were defeated by him in one hit. That fire. Jijui Yukina's fine hair stood straight up as she trembled in fear. Too terrifying. Both of them looked at Wu Yan, who was bathing in the sunlight. Their hearts started to waver. Wu Yan, who the hell is he? Chapter 903. Itagami Island, Minamiya Natsuki's house. On the table in the hall, small plates of tea and pastries were placed all over the table. The plates of delicious food were like delicately carved ceramics. They were exquisite and pleasing to the eye. In addition, the steam and fragrance wafting from the tea and pastries were enough to make one's heart itch with just a glance. Wu Yan was sitting on a sofa. Xiao Guqing and Yakina were sitting across from him. Their faces were filled with hesitation and caution. Their eyes were glued to the refreshments on the table. From time to time, they would swallow their saliva. It seems like the temptation of the refreshments was affecting them. However, they didn't make a move. After all, they were in someone else's home, and they were brought here by their mysterious teacher, who had the ability to defeat a true ancestor's familiars with a single strike. Under such circumstances, it was natural for them to be cautious and cautious. As for Nagisa, she was happily sitting on the other side of the sofa. She was excitedly munching on the refreshments on the table. She was enjoying the red tea. Kotori sat beside her and ate with Nagisa. She was used to Wu Yan's cooking, so she wasn't in a rush. The two ignored Wu Yan, Koju, Yakina, who were stuck in a weird stalemate. They ate like there's no one else around them, and they kept talking. Of course, Nagisa was the one talking and Kotori was the one listening. It seemed that in a short period of time, the relationship between the two had developed quite well. Kotori didn't mind Nagisa's nagging. According to her, compared to the boring meetings in Ratatoskr, Nagisa's words were child's play. Wu Yin couldn't help but chuckle when he saw the two of them looking at the refreshments with a cautious look on their faces. All right, go ahead and eat if you want. No need to be so reserved. Just treat this as your own house. Xiao Guqing and Yakaina were embarrassed. Kotori gave Wu Yin a disdainful look. How can you say something like that? This isn't your house. Wu Yin was embarrassed. He turned his head away. Xiao Guqing and Yakaina giggled. Their expressions were much more casual. After hesitating for a moment, the two of them finally couldn't stop themselves from salivating. She reached out to the tea on the table and pretended to be calm as she put it into her mouth and took a bite. Their eyes widened. They couldn't help but exclaim, "Delicious, right? Right? It's delicious, right?" Before Wu Yin could say anything, Nagisa exclaimed, "This taste, it's perfect. It's much better than Nagisa's." Nagisa was disheartened. "I was confident in my cooking, but now, I'm defeated. As long as you guys like it." Wu Yin shrugged. "I'm not afraid to tell you guys that my cooking skills were honed under the pressure of a bunch of foodies. It's definitely better than the one sold in the shops." Oomph. Kotori snorted and turned her head away to show that she wasn't a foodie. However, her behavior made it seem like she was trying to hide something. Xiao Nagisa and the others were trying hard not to laugh. Akatsuki Koju and Yakaina shifted their attention away from the refreshments. They looked at Wu Yin with a hesitant look as if they have something to say. "I know what you're wondering," Wu Yin said. "It's normal that you're curious. I'm not trying to hide it. I'm not a normal teacher. I'm an attack mage." Attack demon official. Koju was startled, but he soon understood. An attack mage like Natsuki-chan? Wu Yin nodded and smiled helplessly. "Although I'm just an apprentice." But Yakaina looked at Wu Yin with a serious look. "Back then, I remember you said something, if I'm not mistaken, it was release vassal beasts, right?" "That's right." Ignoring Koju and Yukina's shocked expressions, Wu Yin didn't try to hide anything. "I did say that. I may be an attack mage, but I'm also a vampire." "Vampires?" Yukina's expression turned strange. An attack mage vampire is like a pig holding a butcher's knife, so ridiculous that it makes people speechless. Wait. You're saying you're a vampire?" Koju drew a sharp breath as he turned to Nagisa with an urgent expression. Then, "Nagisa, well, I've been troubled by this as well." Wu Yin smiled bitterly and glanced at Nagisa. "Because I'm a vampire, Katsuki-chan has been avoiding me." "I'm sorry, teacher." Nagisa lowered her head apologetically. Wu Yin waved his hand. "You don't have to take it to heart. I more or less know about your situation. I'm already very happy to be able to sit and eat with me." "Yeah, Nagisa." Xiao Guqing stood up and looked at Nagisa nervously. You know that Wu Yin sensei is a demon. Aren't you afraid?" "Koji-kun, don't overreact." Nagisa blushed and pressed Xiao Guqing down. She felt that Xiao Guqing was making a fuss over nothing and was embarrassing her. It was no wonder that Koju had such a huge reaction. He was originally a human, but the former fourth primogenitor had willingly sacrificed himself and used the principle of cannibalism to transfer the fourth primogenitor's bloodline and familiars to him. That was how he became the new fourth primogenitor. It was also because of this that he was unable to control his familiars. He was originally a human, but became the fourth primogenitor because of someone else's charity. Like a nouveau riche, the fourth primogenitor was the most powerful vampire in the world. How could the prideful familiars of the fourth primogenitor acknowledge a nouveau riche as their master? In order to control his familiars, Xiao Guqing had to feed on the blood of powerful spiritualists and sacrifice them to satisfy his familiars. That was the only way he could slowly gain control over them. But for Koju, familiars were secondary. His biggest headache was his sister. He was a vampire and a demon, but his sister had a phobia of demons. He was constantly worried that his identity would be exposed one day, and his sister would leave him because of it. But now, Nagisa didn't seem to be afraid of Wu Yin. How could he not be excited? Actually, I was very scared at first. I was so scared that I couldn't even stand seeing Sensei. Nagisa lowered her head and snuck a peek at Wu Yin. But not only did Wu Yin Sensei not blame me, he tolerated me in many ways. He treated me to delicious food and treated me so gently. It's hard to believe, but Nagisa isn't that scared anymore. Nagisa blushed. That's how she behaved when she said such embarrassing things to herself. I can't get too close to Sensei Wu Yin yet, but I'm no longer afraid of talking to him. That's already good enough. Wu Yin couldn't help but laugh. I believe that if we continue to interact with each other, Akatsuki will gradually get better. At that time, maybe your phobia of demons will be cured without the need for medication. Nagisa nodded resolutely and clenched her fists in excitement. Nagisa will work hard. Then Nagisa? Koju gulped and asked impatiently. Then if I become a demon too? Of course not. Xiao Nagisa glared at Xiao Guqing in a coquettish manner. Right now, Nagisa can only stop being afraid of Sensei Wu Yin. If Guqing really becomes a demon, Nagisa will still be afraid. How can this be? Koju lowered his head like he was hurt. He continued with an envious tone. Then why does Wu Yin Sensei get to treat him differently? That's why Nagisa doesn't know. Nagisa puffed up her cheeks. Plus, Wu Yin Sensei is gentle. He talks funny. He's easy to get along with, and he cooks delicious food. Koju-kun, you need Nagisa to wake you up in the morning. You're so lazy. You can't even compare to Wu Yin Sensei. Every time Nagisa spoke, Koju's body would twitch. In the end, his body would twitch violently and collapse onto the sofa. Wu Yin turned away guiltily, no longer daring to look at Nagisa. He too loved to sleep in. Chapter 904. Itagami Island Saikai Academy. When the bell rang, Wu Yin, who was lecturing in third-year C class, let out a sigh of relief. He gestured to the students. All right, that's all for today. Don't forget to memorize what you should when you get back. There's only one secret to being a liberal arts student, and that's memorization. Wu Yin sighed as he tidied up the books that were less than 2 centimeters thick. What he was studying in the past, his textbooks were thicker than dictionaries, and that was only one book. It was unlike now, where he could burn books one by one, and they might not last long. In comparison, the students here were blessed beyond belief. Perhaps out of indignation, Wu Yan's lips curled into a smirk. All right, there's a test tomorrow. Remember to revise tonight. If you fail, I won't let you off so easily. Downstairs, a bunch of students screamed in shock before slumping down on their desks with dispirited expressions. Wu Yan was satisfied when he saw this. No matter where the students are from, exams are the most painful thing to do. This is undeniable. If you have anything to say, just tell Akatsuki classmate, don't come to me. After saying this irresponsibly, Wu Yan walked out of the classroom. The students were furious. Wu Yan, Sensei, you're so mean. Yeah. To think I thought he was a good person. Why don't we beg the Sensei? Tell him not to take the test. But didn't the Sensei tell us not to look for him? Then let's go talk to Akatsuki classmate. Good idea. Therefore, next to Nagisa's desk. Immediately, a large group of classmates rushed over to watch. Akatsuki classmate, help us beg the Sensei. Yeah. Tests and whatnot are the most annoying. Of course not. Nagisa was overjoyed to see her classmates crowding around her. She began to talk endlessly without even taking a breath. Tests are good too. They can help you understand your current level and where you're lacking. It can also help you learn better. That's right. I heard that testing can improve one's memory. Continuous testing will also help one's thinking. Furthermore, continuous testing can also improve one's writing speed. If one is more focused, one can even write more beautifully. There are so many benefits. Nagisa doesn't like tests, but I don't hate them either. Also, Wu Yin, Sensei is easy to talk to, but he's very stubborn in certain areas. Yesterday, in order to buy a phone, Sensei walked to another street. The sun was so bright that I didn't dare to go out. Nagisa didn't know. Wu Yin walked to another street block. His real purpose wasn't to buy a phone. He wanted to buy a lollipop shop. He had no choice. He has a sister who loves to eat lollipops. Her lollipops are running out. Without lollipops to keep her company, she's capable of doing anything. That's not the most important thing. Liking lollipops is fine, but liking only one brand of lollipops is too much. Since he doesn't know if there's a lollipop in this world, Wu Yin decided to take one step at a time. Otherwise, he might as well teleport and return home to enjoy the air conditioner. Why would he need to sunbathe in the sun at this point? It had to be said that it was a mistake for these students to talk to Nagisa. Under the bombardment of Nagisa's words, the students went from pleading for her to pleading for themselves, sweating profusely. In the end, they were still muddle-headed. If words were a type of power, Nagisa would be a god tier, no, a super god tier. Nagisa was reluctant to leave the classroom, and Yakaina couldn't help but smile bitterly as she watched the students scramble out of the classroom. Neji-chan, let's go find Wu Yin sensei. We still have to help him. Hearing this, Nagisa paused for a moment. Then, as if she remembered something, she jumped up with a cry. All right, we still have to help him move. Before she could finish, Nagisa grabbed Yukina's hand and ran out of the classroom. Yukina-chan, hurry up. It won't be good if we're late. I know. Yakaina smiled bitterly and sighed. She could only let Nagisa drag her out. In a place not far from Kaihai Academy, there was an apartment. This was the apartment where Xiao Guqing, Xiao Nagisa, and Yakaina lived. Xiao Guqing and Xiao Nagisa lived in room 704, while Yakaina lived in room 705. This was not a coincidence. Yakaina had purposely arranged it. Yakaina was a sword shaman of Lion Organization. She came to Itagami City to keep an eye on the fourth primogenitor, Xiao Guqing. The power of a true ancestor was too great. As long as a true ancestor made a move and released a familiar to cause trouble, it would be no different from a disaster or even a war. Koju was a true ancestor, so the Lion King organization, which specialized in dealing with magical disasters, naturally had to keep an eye on him. At least, that was the reason on the surface. Since the first day she arrived at Itagami Island, Yakaina has turned into an unqualified stalker. She followed Koju around and lived in the same place as him. Today, someone they were familiar with would be staying here once again. Sensei, Kotori-chan, Nagisa, Yakaina, and Koju saw Wu Yin and Kotori standing in front of the apartment building. The three of them hastened their steps as they ran over. Too slow, Nagisa, Kotori reprimanded. We've been waiting here for almost 30 minutes. Sorry. Nagisa put her palms together and apologized mischievously. I was having too much fun chatting with my classmates in class and forgot. Please forgive me. You didn't have to come here in person. Wu Yin shook his head helplessly. Even though we're moving, the furniture company will deliver it to us. We don't even need to move things. We can just use space magic. Why go through so much trouble? No way. Of course not. Nagisa leaned forward with arms akimbo. Even if you don't need our help, we still want to go in with you. I didn't even know Yukina-chan was moving in. If I knew, I would have witnessed her move in. Witness what? Kotori laughed dryly. That's a little too much. Yes. Nagisa puffed up her cheeks. Anyways, we're all neighbors. We have to help each other. Yes. Everyone nodded helplessly. Then, Wu Yin led them upstairs. The reason they moved here is because of Kotori. Not long ago, Kotori and Yakaina were accidentally involved in an incident that was extremely dangerous to Itagami Island. In the end, Koju and Yakaina intervened and solved the problem. Koju successfully took control of his first familiar, Lion's Gold, and rescued an artificial life form with nothing in it. And now, this artificial life form was adopted by Nayu. Just yesterday, it moved into Nayu's home. That wasn't the problem. The problem was that this artificial life girl, named Asteroidi, whether it was intentional or natural, was always naked when she came out of the bathroom or room, whether she was taking a bath or sleeping. She often ran around naked. How can anyone stand this? Even if Wu Yin is willing, Kotori and Natsuki won't be. However, Astaruti has been lectured countless times by the others, but she's still stubborn. Left with no choice, Wu Yin decided to move out with Kotori. Natsuki is regretful that Wu Yin no longer cooks for her and makes her tea. Wu Yin mentioned this to Nagisa and Yakaina when they were at school. Nagisa said they can move in. As a result, today's incident happened. Koju looked at Yakaina suspiciously and said goodbye to Wu Yin with Nagisa. Then we're going back. Bye-bye. Sensei. Kotori-chan too. See you tomorrow. And then bye-bye. Waving goodbye to the trio, Wu Yin watched them return to their own homes before closing the door with a chuckle. Koju, I didn't think he was Siscon. It's not that I can't understand. Kotori tore open her newly bought treasure and put it in her mouth. Nagisa is so cute. If I were her brother, I wouldn't want to marry her off. Oh. Wu Yin raised an eyebrow and put on a fake smile. I didn't think your relationship with Nagisa would improve so much in just a few days. Kotori glanced at Wu Yin and narrowed her red eyes. You're the same. A few days ago, you were Akatsuki classmate, and now you're calling her Nagisa so intimately. Calling someone by their name is a way to improve their relationship. Wu Yin smiled and teased. Isn't that right? Kotori felt a chill down her spine when she heard Wu Yin calling her Nagisa. She shuddered and glared at Wu Yin. I don't care what you say. Don't use that disgusting tone with me. Ah, Wu Yin sighed and changed his tone to one of melancholy. Kotori is cuter when she's in her little sister mode. Wu Yin sensed a sharp gaze on him. He looked over and saw Kotori gritting her teeth as she turned her head away. She's at Tsundere, little sister. Don't call her Tsundere. Kotori glared at Wu Yin and stopped talking. She sat on the sofa and sulked. Wu Yin rolled his eyes in amusement. He walked over to Kotori and sat down beside her. The moment he sat down, he heard a soft snort. Then, he heard something else. Stay away from me, seriously. Hey, Kotori. Wu Yin cut her off and looked up at the ceiling. When was the last time you were alone like this? Kotori was taken aback. Her angry expression disappeared. She lowered her head and said softly, when you left that world. The night Wu Yin bade farewell to Kotori was the only person he said his goodbyes to. That was also the last time the two of them were able to spend time together in peace like this. When I left that world, Wu Yin's pupils dilated as if he was reminiscing about the past. It's already been so long. It's been more than 3 years. That's you? Kotori couldn't help but blurt out. You spent 3 years in another dungeon when you were on a compulsory mission, but I spent less than a month here. Is that so? Wu Yin smiled bitterly. That's so unfair. It's not unfair at all. Kotori raised her voice slightly before lowering it again. Even if you spent more time than I did, but I miss you, Oni-chan, just as much as you do. Of course, Kotori didn't say that out loud. Wu Yin didn't use any mind-reading jutsu on her. However, he somehow heard Kotori's voice. He looked at her, and he rubbed her little head that's covered by a black headband. Thank you for your hard work. Humph. Kotori turned her head away awkwardly. If you're talking about taking me away from that world, there's no need for that. I don't think it's hard work, in fact. I'm happy. Is that so? Wu Yin grinned, and he whispered something that made Kotori flustered. Then, why don't you give yourself to me today? What are you talking about? Kotori jumped up. Her face flushed red, but Wu Yin quickly caught her. She lost her balance and fell into Wu Yin's arms. Ah! Kotori screamed, and before she could react, Wu Yin picked her up in a princess carry. Let go! Kotori yelled with her face flushed red. She struggled with all her might, her heart thumping wildly. That won't do. Wu Yin chuckled. You won't be able to escape today. If you try to escape, I'll take off your headband. No! Kotori let out a reflexive shout before lowering her head with a reddened face. However, she no longer struggled. If it's not me now, I can't. I cry easily when I'm white. I know. Wu Yin whispered into Kotori's ear again. So tonight, it's Commander Mode Kotori's turn. Kotori opened her mouth. She wanted to say something, but Wu Yin sealed her mouth. Wu. Kotori widened her eyes. Her eyes were wet. She looked at Wu Yan's face that was inches away from hers and closed her eyes. Not long after, their clothes fell to the ground. Night fell. Chapter 906. Compared to daytime, Itagami City's nighttime is short. Therefore, the morning came very quickly. When the sky is bright and the sun shines down from the sky, the residents of Itagami City, other than those who have to wake up early, are still deep in slumber. More than 80% of them are still asleep. With the passage of time, the streets gradually became noisy. Trams began to move back and forth. Whether it was office workers or students, they were all preparing to travel day after day, year after year, with only one goal in mind, and that was to not be late. At the same time, Wu Yan's home. Because it was an apartment, the windows were usually opened in the sleeping rooms. There was very little sunlight in the living room. However, at this moment, even though there was no sunlight in the living room was already lit up. However, there were still 2 breaths of time left in the living room. Pieces of clothes were scattered on the ground, and there were even some underwear, which made the originally clean hall look a little sloppy. The sofa and the chair had been completely covered by a not very thick quilt, leaving only a soft armrest exposed to the air. And there, 2 heads are pillowed on the armrest. The body is covered by the blanket. At a certain moment, a soft groan came from one of the heads, breaking the silence. A pair of eyebrows frowned slightly, and eyelids trembled. Then, it opened its eyes rather lazily and with difficulty, revealing a pair of beautiful red eyes. The light shone into Kotori's field of vision, and the dazzling luster caused her to squint her sleepy eyes, which were rippling with traces of water. On her cheeks, circles of red that made people unable to look away were all over her face. It was as if she had just had a very happy dream. But of course, that wasn't the case. Her consciousness returned to her mind. Kotori looked around in a daze. The black headband on his head moved like a rabbit's ears. Then, she felt her body. It's soft and numb. A strange sense of comfort spread throughout her body. Kotori, who was still in a daze, thought that she had accidentally fallen asleep while taking a bath last night, and that she had been soaking in the water for the whole night. Only when she heard a familiar breathing sound did Kotori snap out of her daze, and her memories returned to her mind. The blush on her cheeks quickly spread, dyeing her face a shade brighter than her hair. Kotori squealed as she felt the warmth of the embrace. She remembered Wu Yin is still asleep, so she shut her mouth and held her breath, not daring to make a sound. She got up from the sofa in a flustered manner. She wanted to jump down, but she's naked right now. If she jumped down, she would lose all her light. She suppressed the urge to run away, and she tightened the blanket around her. When she saw Wu Yin sleeping soundly, she sighed in relief. Her face is still as red as ever. Kotori was embarrassed when she recalled yesterday's craziness. It's not that she didn't think she would have such a day, but she didn't think her first time would be in the living room, on the sofa. This made Kotori feel all kinds of shame, all kinds of unbearable shame. It's all because of this despicable brother. Kotori glared fiercely at her older brother. Her brother's joyful sleeping posture was imprinted in her watery eyes. While she was furious, she also felt a little powerless. In the end, she was being shy while the one who was playing the naughty trick was sleeping soundly. What the hell was going on? Kotori bitterly smiled, and she sighed. She struggled free from Wu Yan's arm around her waist, and she wanted to leave. But the doorbell rang at this time. Kotori-chan. Sensei. Good morning. Nagisa's cheerful voice entered Kotori's ears. It's almost time to go to school, Sensei. Rustle, rustle, rustle. Nagisa. Kotori panicked. She hurriedly got up, picked up the clothes on the ground, and ran back to her room. But before she could do anything, another voice was heard. It was a weak male voice. It was Koju's voice. The door isn't locked. As soon as he said that, A soft cracking sound came from the door, and Kotori froze on the spot. It's true. It was Yukina's voice. Why isn't the door locked? Well, Koju said casually. Who knows? The door was slowly pushed open under Kotori's stiff gaze. Koju's figure gradually appeared outside the door. He only spoke when he had one foot in the door. I'm coming in. Wait, senpai. Kojo-kun, don't enter someone else's home. Nagisa and Yakaina wanted to stop him, but it was too late. Koju had already walked into the living room and turned his head around. In a second, Koju's gaze would sweep across the living room, and he would see the intimate scene between the two, including Kotori, who has exposed her bare shoulders. At this critical moment, Kotori's eyes turned sharp. She quickly grabbed the 2 hairpins she used to fix the curtains on the table and threw them at Koju's eyes with all her strength, without using her sprite form. Koju only had time to hear a slight sound as a pair of hairpins pierced his eyes. His vision turned dark as he felt a sharp pain in his eyes. He let out a miserable scream and fell to the ground. What's wrong, senpai? Kojo-kun. Nagisa and Yakaina jumped in fright when they heard Koju scream. Panicked footsteps were heard, and before Kotori could stop them, 2 figures appeared in the living room. Kotori's face turned as red as blood. Senpai, Kojo-kun. Nagisa and Yakaina were stunned when they saw Koju rolling around on the floor. They were also stunned when they saw the messy clothes on the floor and the sofa. Kotori, Nagisa, and Yakaina. The 3 girls stared at each other. They didn't say anything. The atmosphere was eerily silent. Nagisa. Kotori felt her throat dry up, but she still forced a smile. She tightened the blanket around her and let out a laugh that sounded worse than crying. This is not what you think. There are many, many reasons. Nagisa and Yakaina stayed silent. They looked at Kotori, who was blushing as she stuttered her words. Then, they looked at Wu Yin, who was snoring next to her. Their clothes were scattered all over the floor, including their undergarments. Their gazes swept across the room in a single second. Anyone with a bit of experience would be able to guess what was going on. Unfortunately, Nagisa and Yakaina were only 14 or 15 years old, but they were at the age where they started to understand what was going on between a man and a woman. Their cute faces turned red. Nagisa and Yukina's eyes were filled with embarrassment and anger then. Nagisa screamed and ran away without looking back. That. Jijui Yakaina was so embarrassed that she wanted to die. She hesitated for a while, then bowed to Kotori and yelled, "Excuse me." She grabbed Koju, who was still screaming and couldn't open his eyes, and ran out as well. She didn't care about the unconscious Koju, who was slamming his head against the wall and door. Not long after, from the apartment, a sorrowful cry soared into the sky, soaring up into the sky. It's not like that. Chapter 907. Inside the tram, traveling at a constant speed, Wu Yin yawned loudly, looking like he didn't get enough sleep. He sighed as he looked out of the tram window at the bright noon sky. Itagami Island's mornings sure are different. In other places, this kind of light and temperature would only appear in the afternoon, right? His casual remark was meant to start a conversation, but after waiting for a long time, he didn't get anyone to talk to him. Wu Yin stopped yawning. He frowned and looked at the seats in front of him. Nagisa and Yakaina were sitting there. Unlike before, their cheeks were rosy and their heads were lowered. They didn't say a word. Wu Yin found it strange. Yukina's reaction was normal. She's not the talkative type. But Nagisa's reaction was strange. This child is unusually talkative. Perhaps in the past, Nagisa would be more reserved in front of him. Due to her fear of demons, she would subconsciously avoid him. But after spending some time together, even though Nagisa still doesn't dare to get too close to him, her words are no different from her usual self. Could it be that Nagisa had finally accepted him, only to revert back to her original state? He blinked his eyes. Wu Yin couldn't help but ask, "What's wrong with you two? You look weird." Nagisa and Yakaina tensed up when they heard Wu Yin's question. Their blush deepened. Wu Yin found it even more strange. "Are you feeling unwell?" cold, or fever? Puzzled, Wu Yin moved his head closer to the two girls. The two girls shrieked, and they quickly left their seats. With a series of footsteps, they left Wu Yin. Wu Yan's mouth twitched. He couldn't stay calm. What are you two doing? Did I do something wrong? Wu Yin is certain that something happened between Nagisa and Yakaina. No, it should be more accurate to say that they discovered something. Otherwise, Yakaina wouldn't be the only one. Nagisa might have distanced herself from Wu Yu, but her reaction wouldn't have been this big. Wu Yu had been paying attention to not provoke Nagisa, and the distance just now was within Nagisa's acceptable range. What's wrong with you two? Nagisa and Yakaina lowered their heads in embarrassment. However, they didn't seem to have any intention of walking back. They still maintained a certain distance from Wu Yin. Then, two comments that Wu Yin couldn't accept came out of their mouths. Pervert, pervert, Wu Yin opened his mouth wide in shock. Even his eyes couldn't help but stare blankly. Why? Yakaina snorted. She didn't explain herself. He found a seat to the side and sat down. Only Nagisa stood there and hesitated for a moment before asking, What's the matter? Sensei, Nagisa wants to ask you a question. You must answer honestly. When she said this, Nagisa's face was solemn, but her cheeks were flushed, which made her look even cuter. Wu Yin felt weird about it, but he nodded anyway. Ask away. I'll tell you everything I can. Nagisa was afraid Wu Yin would change his mind. She nodded vigorously. You and Kotori-chan are siblings, right? Of course. Wu Yin nodded without hesitation. Then, Nagisa took a deep breath. This time, she looked nervous. Are you biological siblings? Yakaina perked up her ears at this question. Wu Yin looked confused, but he still answered honestly. Not really. Kotori is kind of my little sister, my god sister. Wu Yin chuckled in his heart. He added in various ways. However, Wu Yan's answer caused Nagisa's expression to crumble. Yukina's expression also looked much better. What? So you're not biological siblings? Wu Yan's head is full of question marks when he saw how relaxed the two are. Why do you look relieved when we're not biological siblings? Why do you look like you can't accept it when we're biological siblings? No. Nagisa and Yakaina quickly shook their heads. Sensei, you're thinking too much. Yeah. After that, the two girls ignored Wu Yin, who is still scratching his head, and started chatting with each other. By the way, even if their performance returned to normal, they still didn't return to Wu Yan's side. Wu Yin raised an eyebrow. He's speechless. He turned to Koju, who was standing beside him. What's going on with them? I don't know. Wu Yin isn't sure if it's just his imagination, but he felt like Koju's tone is filled with resentment. I was attacked by an unknown force, and I'm still angry about it. What are you talking about? Nothing. Sai, forget it. Why do you keep rubbing your eyes? I told you I don't know. And just like that, the trolley bus ride came to an end with Wu Yin scratching his head in confusion. Itagami Island, Saikai Academy. It was still early, and there was still some time before classes officially started. At the entrance of Kaihai Academy, uniformed students were walking on the road one after another. When they entered the school, the vitality that belonged to the students was very obvious here, making some teachers feel as if they had become much younger. Nagisa, Yakaina, and Koju entered the school together. Koju is in the high school division, while Nagisa and Yakaina are in the middle school division. Wu Yin is also teaching in the middle school division, so the three of them decided to separate from Koju. Oh, at this moment, an immature yet dignified voice floated in front of the four of them. The four of you coming to school together is quite an unexpected combination. Wu Yin and the other three were startled. They looked up and saw a petite girl with long straight hair dressed in a black goth costume, holding a black lace fan. She looked at the four of them with an inexplicable smile. Aha! Wu Yin laughed dryly and mumbled. What could be more surprising than a teacher who is less than 5 meters tall and 26 years old? Not Suki. The three of them could not help but burst into laughter when they heard this. Even Na Yu had to choke back her laughter. The smile in her eyes vanished as she snorted coldly. Well, now that I think about it, this combination is more suitable than expected. A perverted senior who laid his hands on a junior and a perverted teacher who laid her hands on a student. Who laid her hands on a student, Koju shouted angrily. As a teacher, don't say weird things like that. Natsuki-chan. As soon as she said that, Natsuki smacked Koju's head with her fan, causing the half-baked ancestor to rub his head in a tragic manner. Don't add the word chan to a teacher's name. Natsuki looked at Koju with an extremely dissatisfied expression. Koju, who had suffered another heavy blow, could only nod with an aggrieved expression. Oh, Wu Yin was surprised and looked at Natsuki with a half-smile. Natsuki-chan, that sounds nice. If you dare to call me that, you're dead. Natsuki looked at Wu Yin with an expressionless face. However, the anger and threat in her eyes are clear as day. If you don't want to be an attack mage trainee for the rest of your life, forget what just happened. Okay. Wu Yin raised his hands in surrender. I promise I won't call you that. Natsuki nodded in satisfaction. She turned around and walked back to the school building. She said to Wu Yin, "All right, come find me tonight." "Oh," Natsuki said. Nagisa and Yakina looked at Wu Yin like he was an animal. Wu Yin's heart skipped a beat. Is there something you need? Yes. Of course I have something to talk to you about. Natsuki didn't care about the curious gazes around her and left after saying that. There's work, don't be late. Chapter 908. Nighttime. Nighttime in Itagami Island isn't peaceful. Demons are mostly active at night. After all, during the day, they have to undergo research in Itagami City. Nocturnal demons are quite common among the demons, especially the vampires. They prefer to be active at night. Therefore, even though Itagami City's nighttime isn't considered the demon realm, the exposure rate of demons at night is much higher than during the day. Naturally, the nighttime when there are a large number of demons moving about is a lot less peaceful. However, this isn't the real problem of Itagami Island's nighttime. The real problem is that at this time of the year, the criminals are also unusually active. Tonight, in a dilapidated warehouse at the edge of the artificial island, Itagami Island, a group of beastmen from the demon race are having an undisclosed meeting. Standing at a vantage point in the warehouse, Wu Yan's wine-red eyes seemed to be able to see the secret meetings going on in the distance. He didn't know how long it took before he looked at Natsuki, who was standing beside him with a parasol in hand. It's not the right time to do so. Is this the job you were talking about? Natsuki nodded in agreement. Her deep blue eyes sparkled in the darkness of a night like a pair of stars, beautiful as a painting. Don't think this is just a small meeting. Natsuki glanced at Wu Yin with a gaze that could see through his thoughts. She spoke in a flat voice. It's just a group of beastmen having an illegal activity. It's not something that requires us to show up. However, the beastmen, there aren't ordinary people. Black Death Emperor faction. Natsuki's gem-like eyes flickered. She sounded a little concerned. That's a group of extremist beastmen. Their ultimate goal is to kill the first true ancestor and seize control of his territory. They want to break the Treaty of Sanctum. Wu Yin felt a little relieved after hearing Natsuki's explanation. The Treaty of Sanctum is the treaty that maintains the coexistence between humans and demons. It's the foundation of the Demon Special District. If the Treaty of Sanctum is broken, in that case, humans and demons no longer got along well, and demons no longer appeared in people's lives openly was secondary. If the impact was serious, it was very likely that the demons and humans would become enemies from now on. It might even trigger a war between humans and demons. In other words, the actions of this Black Death Emperor faction, the existence of the Demon Special District, the existence of Itagami City, and even the entire situation. I have no choice but to take this seriously. His expression gradually turned grave. Wu Yan's eyes also became serious. Seeing him like this, Natsuki laughed and shook her head. Even though the opponent is Black Death Emperor faction, you don't have to be so serious. The ones here are just the lower level members. Plus, even if Black Death Emperor faction is here, Itagami City isn't a place that can be easily bullied. Natsuki paused and looked deeply at Wu Yan. I also don't think that the Black Death Emperor faction has the ability to make you take them seriously. Wu Yan's expression crumbled. He rolled his eyes at Natsuki, but she only chuckled. Our goal this time is to take down the Black Death Emperor faction's officers. It would be best if we can get information from them about the mastermind behind this riot, Christopher Kardashian. The location of Gardos. Natsuki raised her head. Her voice became low. And their goal? Wu Yan nodded. He and Natsuki looked at the warehouse in the distance. Smoke rose from the corner of the warehouse. Flames blew away the doors of the warehouse. The sound of explosions echoed. Under Wu Yan and Natsuki's gaze, the heavily armed Itagami City guards launched a surprise attack. The rusty iron pillars creaked under the weight of the heavy load, and the stacked wooden boxes swayed under the dim moonlight. Faint gunshots echoed in the air like firecrackers. The Itagami City guards are armed with special firearms and bullets. They can seal off the demon's regenerative ability and easily break through the demon's demonic energy. This time, they're using special bullets specifically designed to deal with beastmen. Normal beastmen can't possibly stand a chance against the guards armed with such weapons. The walls of the warehouse were destroyed one by one. The orcs, who were once invincible in the eyes of ordinary people, could not even put up a fight against the guards. Screams of agony and gunshots rang out. The battle was over in less than 2 minutes. After the smoke dissipated, orcs could be seen lying on the ground in layers in the distant warehouse. There was no blood on their bodies, but there was light smoke rising from their bodies, indicating the damage they had suffered. The beastmen that fell here were all unregistered demons that hadn't been registered. Based on this point alone, the guards had enough reason to arrest them. Of course, they didn't die. The vitality of the orcs couldn't be compared to that of the vampires, but it was still much stronger than that of humans. It was impossible to kill them with just this level of damage. The guards could only immobilize them. At this point, the battle was basically over. The guards also started to wrap things up, intending to arrest all the orcs present. But at this moment, an uninjured leopard-headed orc with a robust body and neat black fur suddenly jumped out, roaring angrily as he escaped from the scene. Not good. We missed something. Chase him. A commotion broke out at the scene. Natsuki, who was standing at the top of the warehouse, exclaimed in surprise. Then, she started mocking him. I didn't think you'd have the ability to escape from a hail of bullets. Black Death Emperor faction, I'll give you some praise. Natsuki raised her parasol and said to Wu Yan, Let's go, we'll catch the fish that escaped the net. Wu Yan nodded lightly. Just as he was about to take a step forward, his body stopped abruptly. His eyes flashed with a hint of emotion as he turned his head to the side. What's wrong? Natsuki stopped when she saw Wu Yan's reaction. She turned around and followed Wu Yan's gaze. Natsuki was stunned by what she saw. In front of their eyes, a large yacht is slowly moving in the middle of the sea. The yacht is much larger than an average ship. It looks luxurious, like a noble on a cruise. The yacht is heading towards Itagami Island. That ship. Natsuki frowned. Her expression changed for a split second. Wu Yan saw this, and he asked her in a soft voice, Do you know that yacht? Natsuki stared at the yacht for a long time before she pursed her lips. Rather than saying, I know the yacht, I know what's on it. Natsuki shifted her gaze to Wu Yan after she finished speaking. What? Are you interested? Well, you can say that. Wu Yan chuckled in an unreadable tone. There seems to be an incredible existence on that yacht. Indeed, that guy isn't simple. Natsuki didn't deny it and met Wu Yan's gaze. Don't tell me you want to meet him? Wu Yan pondered for a moment and shrugged with a smile. You can say that. I'm interested in an existence that can make my blood flow a little more active. Active? Natsuki narrowed her eyes and said seriously. Just active? Wu Yan didn't answer Natsuki. He waved at her. I'll leave that to you. I'll go take a look. Wu Yan disappeared after saying that. Natsuki stood there quietly. She ignored the fleeing beast man. She kept looking at the direction Wu Yan disappeared in. Her eyes were filled with emotions that no one could tell what she was thinking. Active, is it? Na Yu muttered as if she was sleep-talking. Not long after, Na Yu returned to her original state. She turned around and faced the direction of the escaping beastmen. That guy is also a vampire, but he can only make your blood flow more active. Wu Yin, I'm getting more and more curious about what kind of existence you are. After all, he's said to be the closest existence to a true ancestor. Chapter 909. In the middle of the night, a large yacht broke through the waves and slowly approached the man-made island called Itagami City. Oceanus Grave. That's the name of the yacht. At this time, on the deck of the yacht, a Western-style handsome man wearing a white suit, with short blonde hair and a pair of blue pupils stood at the forefront. Looking at the gradually approaching coast, a strange smile appeared on his face. It's an excited and bloodthirsty smile. Is it the Demon's Special District, Itagami City? The handsome man's lips curled up. Greed flashed in his eyes. That's right, greed, as if he's thirsting for something. The fourth primogeniture, Akatsuki Koju, is on that island. After taking one last look at Itagami City, the handsome man shifted his gaze away. He didn't come here for the demon race, but for the existence known as the strongest vampire in the world. Itagami Island. In his eyes, without the fourth primogeniture, it doesn't matter whether it exists or not. Compared to his fief, Itagami City doesn't have much to show for it. The handsome man is the envoy of Europe's War King domain. The first primogeniture, the Forgotten War King, bestowed the title of Duke of Iridiaro. He's also a direct descendant of the first primogeniture. He's a pure-blood vampire, and a pure-blooded vampire from the old generation. Of course, his strength was much stronger than ordinary pure-blooded vampires of the old generation. This was because he was one of the very few vampires who possessed special abilities. It was also because of this special ability that he was extremely powerful. He even used this ability to devour 2 second-generation vampire elders. In terms of bloodline, he's second only to the primogeniture. In terms of strength, he's the closest to the primogeniture. No matter how you look at it, he's the number 1 vampire below the primogeniture. That's why he's the first primogeniture's most trusted aide. He's also the first primogeniture's trusted aide. Unfortunately, he didn't come to Itagami City on the orders of his king. He came for selfish reasons. Raise your hand. The handsome man swirled the wine in his hand. Inside, the scarlet-red wine followed his movements and rose and fell with the waves under the yacht, creating circles of bloody ripples, as if indicating the arrival of a bloody storm. The atmosphere in the room is a little eerie. At a certain moment, the pretty boy's hand movements suddenly stopped. His originally calm eyes once again flashed with a trace of emotion. An interesting smile appeared on his face as he slowly turned around. Before he knew it, a figure had appeared in front of him. The pretty boy was absolutely certain that there hadn't been anything there at all a second ago. The figure appeared out of thin air and stared at him with a pair of wine-red eyes. There was not the slightest fluctuation on his face, but in his eyes there was the same expression as the pretty boy. That expression was interesting. The newcomer is Wu Yan. Was that a spatial teleportation magic? The handsome man chuckled. Are you sure? Wu Yan looked at the handsome man. Maybe it's a space-type superpower, or maybe it's atomization. Unfortunately, I know a witch who specializes in this kind of magic. The handsome man shook his head. That's why I'm quite familiar with spatial teleportation magic. Wu Yan raised an eyebrow and shrugged, acknowledging the handsome man's words. The handsome man's interest was piqued. If I'm not mistaken, you're a vampire, right? The handsome man asked with interest. I've never heard of a vampire who can use spatial teleportation magic to such an extent. If you hear about it, I'm going to have a headache. Wu Yin pursed his lips. I see. The handsome man didn't mind. He continued with a smile. Then you are. Wu Yan's lips curled into a mocking smile. As you said, I'm a vampire. Then, what's your purpose? Wu Yan crossed his arms in front of his chest. I'm just here to take a look. The handsome man narrowed his eyes. He stared at Wu Yan for a while. The interest in his eyes turned into displeasure. He didn't think he could get any information from Wu Yan. He waved his hand impatiently. His movements were quite elegant. If that's the case, it's about time for you to leave, nameless vampire. With that, a surge of mana surged from the handsome man's body. Then, a giant snake radiating purple light and a scorching heat came out of the magic vortex. It shot out like an arrow, without any warning. It opened its huge jaws and bit at Wu Yan. The serpent's level of magic was far from being a familiar of a pure-blooded vampire, let alone a familiar of a vampire that was close to a true ancestor. A familiar of this level is nothing more than a random item the handsome man released. However, even if it was a weaker vampire from the old generation, he would still be half dead after taking a hit from it. If a human was hit by it, let alone an ordinary human, even a powerful attack mage would not be able to escape death. Obviously, in the pretty boy's eyes, Wu Yan is just a stray dog that barked a few times during a journey. Since there's no way to interest him, then he's free to go. There's no need for the owner's approval. The reason he released his familiar is because he doesn't want to talk to Wu Yan anymore. He wants to chase him away. That's all. As for Wu Yan's survival, it has nothing to do with him. As the closest vampire to a primogenitor, the blood on his hands is enough to form a lake. Even if it's not enough to form an ocean, killing one or two of his kind is nothing to him. But this time, the handsome man miscalculated. The person in front of him did appear out of nowhere, but he's not a stray dog. In terms of bloodline, the handsome man is of a higher rank than the vampire closest to a primogenitor. That's because the handsome man is a true primogenitor, looking at the menacing serpent coming at him with the momentum of a mountain. The mana ripples it emits are much stronger than a high-level magician's. But to the handsome man, it's nothing but trash. To Wu Yan, it's trash among trash. Wu Yan didn't even bother to look at the snake. He didn't even bother to move his hands. He stood there motionlessly. Wu Yan's mana was so dense that the pretty boy who was about to turn away froze in place. Wu Yan's mana burst out from his body, and he rammed into the giant snake like a wall that collided with a wall. Boom! There was no stalemate, no collision. The serpent was crushed into pieces by the sheer amount of mana. Not even a trace of mana was left behind. It was crushed into nothingness. The handsome man's eyes widened when he saw this. His gaze landed on Wu Yan. This is the first time he's looking at the handsome man since Wu Yan appeared. Although the familiars were nothing to him, his opponent didn't even need to use them. Instead, he used his mana to neutralize the familiars. It was obvious who was stronger in this simple exchange of blows. Seeing that the pretty boy is finally looking at him in the eye, Wu Yan lost interest. He had only come here to see what kind of existence could make his blood throb a little. And now, he had seen this person, and from the beautiful man's words and Nayu's words, he could guess that Nayu definitely knew him. As for the rest, he'll just have to ask Natsuki when he gets back. With that in mind, Wu Yan didn't feel like staying any longer. What a rude way to send a guest off. Well, I've achieved my goal. I'll leave even if you don't send me off. With that, Wu Yan planned to leave. But this time, it's the handsome man who won't let him go. Please forgive my rudeness. The pretty boy said such a sentence without the slightest bit of apology. His tone was full of fanatical fighting spirit. Since you're here, why don't you stay and have some fun? Isn't it interesting that you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel? Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.